Bloody Monday.
Spence, how are you doing?
I'm chill. Having some tea with some mint. I had a thin mint earlier. I wanted peanut butter cookies, but they ran out, so my kid got thin mints. Guess it's not a total loss.
China markets are crashing. Housing, oh no, seriously, they're going down now. Their housing market developers are crashing. Everything's crashing over there.
Good. Thanks for the update on that too. That's interesting. Fuck them. Fuck them all, dude.
Fuck them all. That's right.
That's how I feel too. Fuck them all.
I'll put it up top there. It looks like the LME isn't going to open until the 2 days from now. Well, I can't wait to see what that car crash does.
All these American funds that got overinvested in China and Russia, and the last administration warned against it and even tried to make laws against it. And all we heard was, China's not our enemy, they're our ally. Oh, Russia's not doing nothing. They've completely fucked up the global economy with their shenanigans. Communism, the fact that American investors were allowed to get in bed with communists is a complete and utter failure of our government and our society. How do people not understand what communism brings at this day and age? It blows my freaking mind.
What's up, Spencer? Yep, totally agree, brother. Absolutely. No mercy for that side. Fuck that.
Yep. Well, some of our own freaking funds, man. BlackRock, fucking all of them. They got so overinvested in China. Look at JP Morgan's $10 billion in the hole. They had to margin call that Chinese nickel investor. There's $150 billion at stake in Russia right now through our banking system. And all they want to do is keep printing more money. It's almost like they want it to go down. Like they want everything to burn.
And where this money is all coming from, that's
well,
that's the question, you know.
Somebody try to logically tell me how Melvin Capital fucked up so bad this past couple months. There's no logical reason for it. They're dumping the fund on purpose.
It's one big dumpster trash fire party.
I bought the discounts today, fellas.
Yeah. That's a good buy. 7%. I'll tell you what, if they try to take this thing below $10, it's going to be funny because retail is going to buy it's going to be so stupid. How are there even any shares left to buy? It's so crazy.
Yeah, the fuckery of our stock is just unreal. It's just it's mind-boggling, you know. It really is. Yeah, we're what shares, you know?
And don't take all my cussing and stuff today as that I'm stressed out. I actually really am totally chill with everything that's happening because I see the rest of the market just absolutely bloody.
Hey guys, I don't know can you give me a quick summary of the market and everything? Because I'm doing South by right now.
I'm having a hard time. Can you ask your question again? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time.
I'm currently at South by, so I would like to know like the overall market, like what happened today, the market.
The world happened, dude. Russia's blowing up Ukraine. China is a communist party who's losing billions of dollars a year. And we have really corrupt, super corrupt politicians and financial advisors in America that are making really bad bets with communist party leaders. So that's basically it. They'll try to say it's irresponsible retail consumers that did this again.
Yep, nope, it's the over-leveraged hedge fund fucks. You know, when margin call. Fucking margin call them.
Hedge funds don't produce anything. They don't make any goods. They don't provide any real services besides just their financial management. So it's really funny that these guys have such an impact on our economy.
Hey guys, the more they fuck around with this stock now, the more I'm gonna buy.
Yep.
I have a
I
feeling
said
that we're going to drop the F-bomb a lot in
1420
this
was
call.
my buy point, and I held true to it.
You know, Spence, I don't know if they'll blame retail this time. I think you know how Putin has caused the inflation to happen. I think they're going to blame China for it because China's collapsing. So
Yeah.
the retail might be off the hook.
We'll see. It'll be. I'm talking like people like Gasparino and all these clowns in the hedge fund industry that suck Ken Griffin's kneecaps will come out and be like, "Oh, retail investors lost all their. There's $1 trillion in retail money that was lost in bad trades." And both sides can't be down. Long and shorts can't be down like this at the same time. So there's some massive fuckery going on right now. And I fully believe, like you said, if China market's crashing, eventually this is all going to come to a head. The people that overinvested in China and America are going to get margin called. It's going to be a string of margin calls, and it's going to be the first person to the door. Just like Margin Call, the movie in 2008, the dude says, it's a hell of a lot easier to be first. So I feel like it's definitely coming.
Hey guys, just want to let everyone know in the room right now that this space is being recorded, and it's also being live streamed right now onto Spence's YouTube channel, Froggy Stonks. I'm gonna pin that to the top of the call, and also just wanted to say too that for those just getting in the room, if you could please tweet out the call, that would be very much appreciated. Thanks.
U.S. loses top 1.1 trillion as Beijing Russia ties spark investor concerns. They're already posting about it. Chinese stock crash. Wow. Yeah, look at dude. NEO is at $14 freaking dollars, man. Absolutely. I'll tell you, if there's one thing I learned from this crash, when I came into this, like, man, I can't wait to buy the dip. I can't wait to buy the dip on the crash, right? I've learned to short the peak. The next peak I see, I am shorting the living shit out of this market. Because, I mean, man, I knew I should have been playing my short positions like Robinhood and stuff the way I wanted to, but I was so tied up with AMC that I just didn't get to doing it properly. And I got talked out of my Facebook short by a bunch of hedge fund types, which I shouldn't have done, but I did because I was nervous about shorting.
Spence, hi guys. There's only looking forward. What you learn moving forward is the best thing on earth. And you know how many times I said, I wish I would have done this, I wish I would have done that. Yeah, it's annoying, but you know what? There's an opportunity every single day in the stock market to do something better. That being said, I sent you guys a message. I believe as I'm looking at the chart at the very last minute, there were 2 or 3 doji stars. I think the selling pressure on the minute charts, I think the selling pressure is so immense on this stock that they cannot keep on doing this. They can't. They're going to lose control of this play at some point. And I really feel like that. And so I'm not worried in the least bit that, I mean, I wouldn't even be concerned if it went down to $5. I would just continuously buy more because I'm so convinced and I'm done with them. They cannot keep on doing this. And Spence, I added to your tweet and I'll pin it. You're 100% right about oh my gosh, the dog moved and I forgot what I was going to say, but you were 100% right about what did you say? Oh, about Gensler failing his duties.
Oh yeah, that dude's a failure, man. I don't care. Anybody can come in here. Well, Gary Gensler's working for us, man. You're a fucking moron. Gary Gensler is not working for you. He can't even do his job. He admitted he can't do his job. And any time that any of these funds break any of the regulations, it's a slap on the wrist. So, like, I'm telling people today, quit hoping and praying that Gary Gensler is going to do something. If he was going to, he would have already done it, and he would have saved the market in the process. He let this happen.
Also, I've been wondering, and I haven't done any research, but I wonder if any of you know the answer. How many other stocks are held 90% by retail? Are there any other?
Exactly. I just talked about that in my last YouTube video. Said we're over 20% short interest for 7 months. We're 100% utilization for over 30 days. And we're over 90% owned by retail. But AMC was $32 back in 2019. So if somebody can logically explain that to me, I'd be happy to listen. But if anything, we should be sitting at $30 right now with no issues whatsoever.
And what I noticed today too, I'm on spring break, so I get to stay home now.
Woo!
But I know it's exciting. But what I did notice that I haven't noticed in a long time, I think we spoke about this last night, that I was looking at Cinemark, and that went quite along with SPY, and AMC just completely went the opposite direction. I mean, it didn't even take 3 seconds, and that pisses me off. I mean, give this security a break. Let it breathe a little. And I think that once they do that, it's all going to go to hell in a hand bucket, and not for us, for them.
Yeah, if the market crashes, we lose on our investments for the time being, but we just go back to work. And okay, then we're doing what we would be doing without our investments anyways. I'm not speaking for everybody, but for most of us on retail, these guys, when they go down, that is their job. The money they're going to lose, that closes their fund down. And I mean, we've seen funds close for over a year now. It's been fund after fund after fund. It's slowly just getting to the big guys, and I think we're almost there. This Chinese market crash coming up is going to affect American banks in a big way this week.
And don't forget, even if the market crashes and we get knocked down to $2, $5, $8, which I don't think is going to happen, because I think the market crash has been happening the whole time. And I mean, if we have some sort of 20% event, we'll go down to $10. Big deal. At that point, and even now, I mean, I piled in today. I mean, and anything lower than this, people are going to buy, and it's just going to make it worse for them. And that's where I find my comfort in right now, is that the lower it goes, the more accessible it is to everyone. And that's a plus when it's such a hot play like this.
Well, that's why they want to do the 20-to-1 split on Amazon. I'll tell you what, if this thing goes below $10, I will be buying $500 worth of shares every month while it's under there. Just like you said, PJ, if them shorts are piled in on this that much and we keep buying, they're going to have to eventually cover, because their liquidity on their long positions is so bad that they just get margin called. The thing that pisses me off is Gary Gensler and the DTCC and everybody is letting them force the stock down so that they can cover, or even attempt to. But keep in mind, if retail holds like everybody says they do, it won't matter if we hit even $2, because if people aren't willing to sell, that price is going to skyrocket on demand. You know what kills me about this whole thing more than anything is that the cost to borrow is still under 3%. That blows my freaking mind.
And you know what? Even if the cost to borrow is still under that, that's rigged too, right? I mean, it's so obvious. But even if the cost to borrow is low, and even if they do something to the utilization to make it look worse, or what have you, we still only have 85% of what is actually reported. And I think that in the end, there is nothing they can do to stop. Once they start to cover even a little bit, and I'm sure they're covering tiny bits. I mean, we're having maybe a 2% run, maybe down 3%, up 2%. This can't go on for much longer. And I think when they begin to really cover a little, even delta hedging or gamma squeeze. People are gonna jump in. Even those people that sold at 72, they're coming back and they're gonna ride it up, and they're gonna help us get even higher than what we were the last time. I really feel like that.
Absolutely.
And if anybody needs to correct me if I'm saying anything wrong or if my thought process is off, please let me know.
I heard something at the end, but I was still loading up.
My plan is to, whatever you're upside down on this play, if you're upside down or wherever you're at, if we get below $10, then it's just an opportunity to load up on shares little by little until you correct your position enough to when we get back above $10. AMC is a $30 stock all day long. Fundamentally, back in 2019 at their peak, they were $30 and they were nowhere near in the position they are today. They got $1.8 billion in cash on hand, ready to go with reduced debt, and they're buying out the competition's leases. Man, these clowns pushing Cinemark, it's like whatever.
I mean, if it goes under $10, if it does, it just gives retail more of an opportunity to buy more of those cheap shares, and for someone like me, an opportunity to continue to average down.
That's right. And don't you remember when we used to call them lotto tickets? They're still lotto tickets. Don't ever forget that.
I'll tell you what, if it gets under $10, I might do some dumb investing. I might put a lot into it, because there's nothing logically in my mind that anyone can tell me to say that AMC is worth less than $20 a share. There's nothing. It's absolutely stupid. The movie lineup coming out this year, and the fact that AMC literally was like, okay, we're going to charge an extra $1 for opening night for Batman. I mean, they probably made an easy $2 million off of that. Like, just imagine that. Making $2 million in an evening off of one movie and using that to pay off the interest on the loans. That's huge. And the one article that came out where it said the production industry was ranting about how greedy it was for AMC. Whoever wrote that article needs to just fucking stop, delete their Twitter, and give up their job. Because if you're telling me that it's greedy for AMC to charge an extra $1 during high inflation after they were forced closed down by the CDC for a year, I have all the bad words in the dictionary to say to that guy, whoever wrote that article.
So you guys know how UPS and FedEx do surge charging every year for peak season. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I work for UPS. We charge a lot more per package during Christmas.
Yeah.
So
everybody charges more during times like this.
Yeah. No, it's expected. So I had a question, and this might be ignorant or naive. I've been listening to you guys for a while. I love it, but I don't know everything that you guys do. Some of these guys are so over leveraged. If they get a margin call, some of them aren't going to be able to make it.
Yeah, exactly.
So what happens then?
They close their doors.
Fuck them.
So what's supposed to happen is if they get margin called and can't cover it, they're supposed to be able to give all their long position shares to the DTCC and get a cash loan to pay off their bad positions. And then the DTCC holds all their Google, Apple, and Amazon as collateral.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
Hey,
good.
John, in between talking, can you mute your mic, please?
Yeah, sure.
I want to add here, when they liquidate them longs that they're holding, that also brings down the value in them stocks for other companies that are going to get margin called, and it creates a snowball effect.
Yep. It's going to be ugly, you guys, and it's coming. It's everything I'm seeing is pointing towards this. We're getting to the climax of this situation, because you can't lose as much money as been lost in these past 2 months and have 150 billion locked up in Russia and not have issues. So it all depends on what the government's going to do. If they try to come out and say, we're going to do a $100 billion bailout for whoever. And if they try to do that again, you're going to see people in the streets, man.
So do you think that they'll margin call on these stocks? I have my doubts about that.
Well, I think we need to correct that terminology, right? Margin calls happen all the time. They're normal. It's liquidations that we care about, right? Because you can get margin called all day long. You can get margin called, I mean, not all day long, but you can get margin called, every day. And if you're able to post more collateral and maintain your margin, then you're able to stay in business. I guarantee you a bunch of these funds have been margin called probably weekly for a long time. And they're slowly getting rid of their position. And that's why we're seeing some of these, that's why we've seen some the massive declines we've seen in some of the big tech stocks recently, is that some of these funds like Melvin were deep in plays like Facebook. And so when Facebook started to tumble and they were sitting really close to margin, we saw all these assets all start selling off around the same time. We saw Facebook sell off. We saw crypto sell off. We saw, some bank stocks sell off, particularly when they started to see the connections back to some of these funds and other similar things. I'd have to go back and look at which charts I was looking at the time when I saw this, but like a bunch of the big name. Oh, and Tesla is another one that people are really heavily long on, and as that one has continued to fall, again, other investors like Melvin have big positions in those big mega cap stocks, and they're as they continue to get beaten down like this, as the S&P 500 continues to fall like it has pretty consistently since November of last year, or December, right around in that time, like we just haven't seen a real recovery in the and MSM is trying to stave off using the word depression or recession, because they know that the moment that they actually admit that that things are going to get way worse really quick. So the people who are paying them are also involved in making sure that that doesn't happen, so that they can try.
Hey Jay Brett, I've been hearing the word recession on BM Bloomberg on TV. I've been seeing it in some of the articles.
They're finally starting to not be able to sweep it under the rug.
Jay Brett, that was extremely well said, man. You put everything in a perfect perspective with that. And all I can think of is The Big Short, where Michael Burry asked his coworker, his underling, when he's walking out the door the one time, he says, "I need you to come in early and unload the Fannie Mae position so we can pay the collateral on the shorts."
Yep, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, both of those.
Yep.
And I think they also unloaded AIG as well, right? Because AIG was at the center of the whole implosion as well, since they were the primary supplier of these insurance contracts against these homes and against these like swaps. So they provide the swaps, right, which are an insurance protection against a bond. And essentially the idea is that if if the bond goes to zero, that they get paid out, and the closer it comes to zero, the more valuable their swap becomes. So they're able to recoup losses. Well, they figured all this out, and Burry figured out how to short it.
I remember sitting in Iraq watching CNN Money on the computer on my breaks, watching AIG just go down into the dirt, man. That brings back some memories.
Yep. And knowing that the derivative market is still jacked up, I'm short AIG as well. So I've been short AIG for a while, and I'm up like 40% now. I've been short all the bank stocks for a while too, when some of the news started to hit about JP Morgan, Chase, the recent news there, Morgan Stanley, the recent news there, Bank of America owns Merrill Lynch, and Merrill Lynch was involved in some of the bad hedge fund plays as well, and so I'm short them. Basically, if it's a bank stock that has had a bad name at any point in time in the last decade, I'm short them.
So you can go ahead, man. We're not really doing hands or anything.
Yeah, totally agree with everything Jay Brett was saying. And one big thing that happened today for the market is that Apple actually is now trading below its 200 moving average. So that is being the most valuable stock in the stock market.
That is also huge. That is huge for people who aren't TA people. 200-day moving average is kind of considered the most stable baseline support resistance model, and most of the time when a stock moves below that 200-day moving average, that's a big sign that there's a longer term shift in the trend line, and usually indicates that, if it clears below that line and it tests it again and doesn't pass through, there's oftentimes a rejection, which results in an almost equal negative move to whatever the highest move was away from, or the highest most recent move away from that trend line above, as you can go back and find in the chart. So you find a recent high, you measure recent high down to the 200-day moving average. So you look at the daily charts, and then you measure that same move to the opposite direction of the 200-day, and that gives you an idea of what your target would be for a swing below. However, in the case of something like this, it definitely can go a lot lower than that, given current market structure and conditions.
Yeah, today it gapped down below it, and then it did exactly that. It tested it. It peeked its head up above it for like a couple bars, and then whoop, went back down and traded to the low of the day.
And if Apple, the most valuable company in the world, falls enough, that's going to be really bad for those funds, because all of those funds, I guarantee, are long on Apple. Anybody who's not long on Apple, like, I don't know, has probably been asleep for the last decade, or they, think some crazy like theory about how bad Apple is, and like, I've known a lot of people who've worked there, and I've also, had them as a customer, and like, I know people there, and like, yeah, some of their, I think, there was some stuff in the news about how they treat their workers and that not being great, and those things suck, but that's happening across the entire tech industry as a whole. So like, they're all equally guilty, I guess you could say, of stuff that's not great. But the labor market is starting to, fight back against that. And what we're starting to see is that, those things will work themselves out in the labor market because of the level of skill required to work in those jobs. And so people, like, talent will stop flowing inbound, and it'll flow outbound, and eventually hiring will figure that out, and they'll start to adjust their hiring practices, and they'll get back on track. Same goes for all the rest of the big tech stocks. And I know a lot of people have been leaving those jobs because I've got a lot of friends at the big companies, because I'm former Amazon, and I had friends that went to Google. I had friends that went to Facebook. I had friends who went to Facebook as recently as right before their first big drop, in the last few months. I think one of my friends went in January, and I've had probably half a dozen friends go to Facebook. But my point is that everybody shuffles around at the skill level, at that skilled work level within those companies. And when you start to see a mass exodus from one of those companies, like check on LinkedIn and follow people that are in industry who've worked at those places, and you can see their job movements in that industry. And maybe you just follow them based on somebody else, and don't bother them too much, because the people in the tech industry really get annoyed by random people bothering them in LinkedIn. But it can give you an idea of sentiment from the industry for those companies. I bet you could probably do the same thing for other industries as well too. But just kind of keeping an eye on those things will tell you whether or not those companies are acting in good interests of their employees, and or if there's weird governance stuff going on, because unless they have issues related to visa, they're free to move about the Southern California, Seattle, Austin, and Austin, Dallas. Let me back up. Bay Area, Austin, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Seattle, New York City, Virginia. If that company has a presence in one of those locations, they have a very easy time drawing in new talent. Not as much now with how everybody's gone remote, but
I got a question quick.
Go ahead, Matt. You guys have your hand up. Go ahead.
I want somebody with a little more knowledge and a little more depth into the knowledge of reverse credit swaps and Federal Reserve, and what effect that has on the bank's underlying loans and the margin requirements for them loans.
That's a good question. I don't have enough expertise on the reverse repo market to really comment. I don't know if anyone else does, though.
So the 10 largest Chinese companies trading in the United States, most likely the ADRs, have lost more than 1.1 trillion in market value since their all-time highs, representing more than double their combined value of roughly 520 billion on Monday. The NASDAQ Golden Dragon Chinese Index plummeted 12% Monday and 75% from an all-time high in February. So it's only a matter of time with these, like Jay Brett said, with these tech stocks, the big long blue chips selling off. If you look at these hedge funds and their positions and what they bought in at compared to what it is today, you can do a general calculation on the liquidity issues that they're having right now, which is really big.
Do you think that's what's causing the delay on tightening the economy?
What do you mean the delay?
Well,
the Fed.
Oh, yeah.
Fed hiking rates, yeah.
Oh, yeah. All the money's gone. If longs and shorts are losing at the same time, that means there's money tied up somewhere that it can't be had at. So until this money gets freed up, the Fed's sitting there looking like the biggest clowns ever because they printed so much. It's so wild. All the money in the long positions is going down. The shorts are coming down with it, but at some point in time, it's got to balance out and they got to cover their shorts. So until that money gets freed up in the markets and the markets can act on their own again naturally, the Fed can't do a thing. They can raise rates, they can drop rates, they can come out and make beautiful speeches on TV, but all the money in the market's locked up into these bad positions right now, or stuck overseas in Russia or China.
Well, that's what I thought too. But then
there's
thinking, go ahead.
There's other things at play too, right? So the massive issue is, Spencer's pretty right on, is liquidity, right? The ability for banks to borrow from other banks and institutions, which is why we had the crash in why the crash in 29 was so bad. There was a credit crunch across the globe, right? The United States saw massive dips in markets, and so everybody was taking massive losses. And you think, well, how can everybody be losing money? And the reality is that in order to make a market, you have to have a buyer and a seller. And if nobody is willing to buy, we'll use, what company we'll say FedEx. I don't know why that came to mind, but FedEx. And we'll say FedEx is trading at, or was trading at $200. So what happened in the 1929 crash, people were buying up FedEx, for example. Now, granted, I don't know if FedEx was publicly traded back then, blah, blah, blah. But
taxi cabs.
It's just an example. And as people started to see the top dogs pulling out, right? So the Carnegies, for example, are one such example. They got out of the market towards the peak. Well, there was somebody who had not yet realized or seen that those big whales were getting out of the market. And due to the delay in news information reaching across the country, because you would get maybe a daily update in the newspaper of the stock tickers from the previous day's close, people didn't know for more than 24 hours that big name players had gotten out of the market. Like, I think it may have even been longer than that, but people were continuing to buy in frenzy because they didn't think things would go down. But the reality is that, again, as I was trying to get to, you have to be able to make a market. If it's trading at $200 and nobody's willing to buy again at $200, then the price starts to tick down. As either those orders get canceled and reset a little bit lower, or whether or not people start to put in orders at market. But when people stop buying, the price will start to decline, which is why when you have a low volume ticker, it tends to be a lot more volatile because there's less buyers and sellers in the market willing to pay a particular price. And so when you're wanting to make a market, the thing I've never really pinned down is how the bid-ask spread is actually determined, algorithmically. I've seen it said that it's done with an algorithm, but I haven't been able to find the details as of yet. I've probably not looked in the right academic books as of the moment. But as the price will continue to decline, there were probably some people who got in there and short sold, as what I've read of the 29 crash. It sounded like some people got in, were smart, and short sold the market. But
Ukraine has experienced multiple cyber attacks on government agencies since the war began, as blaming Russia. Could the U.S. be
because they realized what was going on, but now that everybody's on the sell side, the price will just continue to go down. So the same sort of thing goes on here. If there's nobody willing to pay $1,000 for Tesla anymore per share, then slowly that ticker is going to go down. And eventually you're going to find somebody who's going to make a market, who will buy and think that was the dip, and then a market will get made. But that's why you'll start to see things gap down, is because they can't find a market at those levels. And so then it'll drop down to pick up the next level of orders that are sitting in the order book. And of course, that gives an advantage to an institution who's reading the order book, because they can see those gaps and they can try and, profit off of that gap by, buying a little bit higher than the lowest bid, and then hoping to jump in again and arbitrage that gap. But you didn't have such things that long ago. But the point is, as it continues to drop down, you'll eventually start to find markets right? And people who will take the other side of the trade. But when you see those gaps down, those funds really haven't had an opportunity to do anything. So they get hit. Everybody gets hit, and they get margin called out of it. So like, if you have, somebody who comes in at a low value, and they're able to, and only some of them are able to make a market above their cost average, then people are going to start losing money. And you're going to start to see, like, when that sell pressure picks up, those gaps get bigger, the losses get bigger, and it starts to get more and more out of control. So what they're trying to do, what they failed to do multiple times now, is to, what they've said before, land the plane. And the reality is that they don't have many tools left at their disposal to land the plane, because the Fed's tools to land the plane are to raise the interest rates, print or take back money, essentially. So they'll issue treasury securities, or they'll buy up they'll buy up mortgage-backed securities and other securities. Now that's part of their thing, is right, to add to their balance sheet, which adds to the liquidity. But with when you start to increase the liquidity too much, you then get a glut of supply of dollars, which will then lead to everybody rushing to buy goods and services because there's more available. And at least that is the general theory, right? Is that when you release those dollars, they will then get added into the market, which will then drive spending, which will bring GDP up and make the economy look good. But when you've been doing it too much, too many people are fighting over the demand side. Huh?
Isn't it a false liquidity? Like, it's not real liquidity.
Correct. Yeah, it's essentially, and they do some of it, I believe, as well through the overnight lending with the repos. I'm not an expert on that part of the markets.
Well, it doesn't help when hedge funds and banks are loaning each other money to meet their calls day by day. I guarantee you there's money being handed back and forth between banks and hedge funds right now, like freaking crazy.
I think they're just swapping out the ghost shares for the real ones to create a false change in shares so that they don't have to report it.
China's getting hammered, man. BABA is down 11% today, pretty much with the index. And it's funny that Taiwan Semiconductor happens to be in that index also.
Yeah, TSMC is a very important company for people to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. You should always have your ear to the ground on what's up with TSMC. They are the single largest chip manufacturer in the world.
Did you hear Biden's announcement today?
I don't know how much I can stress this. They are huge. And Foxconn, if you've heard of them before, they're a motherboard manufacturer. They're huge. So when you hear things about supply problems at Foxconn, or you hear about supply problems at TSMC, you should know that the entire tech sector is about to get hammered on supply side issues.
Apparently Intel just dropped news that they're going to invest $20 billion in a new chip plant in Ohio. And they said, which could include up to $100 billion. I don't know when it's going to happen or if it's even true, because Biden announced it today, but who knows?
They've been talking about that for a while. Yep. They've been talking about Intel bringing manufacturing domestic, as well as the others too, right? And that's because of the supply side issues we've seen over the last 2 years within the chip sector. Right, there's a huge
you can put in a chip factory just like Ford can put in a car factory. Ford can't get the chips. The chip factory, where are they getting?
It takes 5 years. It takes 5 years to online one of those factories that TSMC builds. They take a long time.
Supply before they can make chips.
But that's my thing. You can't increase your supply until you have another factory. So you have to wait it out. There's no other way. They're literally cranking things out as fast as they can.
I'm surprised Tesla hasn't jumped on board with this yet, making their own factory.
No, so Tesla did a smart thing, and the same thing with all the other big companies that have global chip supplies. If they were thinking ahead, what they did. What they do is sort of essentially futures contracts. Think of it like futures contracts if you know anything about those. Essentially, what you're trying to do is guess what a price will be in the future. And within the last week, we saw some Chinese investor who had shorted a metal in the metals market. I can't remember exactly what. I think it was nickel. And
are you talking recently?
Yes.
Yeah, it was the nickel squeeze.
That's right, in the LME, and they pulled the buy button bullshit again, this time in the London Metals Exchange. And so we see the same things there. Crap, I forgot where I was. I lost my train of thought with
that's where
metals market.
JP Morgan steps in and has to margin call that investor now. Yeah, it was like $1 billion hit on them.
Exactly. But what was I like? I was going into like the market and the shorts, and I can't remember where my train of thought was because y'all somebody. When we stopped the train of motion, I lost my ability to get back to it.
We'll come back. We'll get back around to it. I'm sure it'll jog your memory. It'll jog.
Yeah, probably.
What's up, Sugar?
Oh, hey, Sugar.
Hey, how's it going?
How are you?
Okay, so I'm gonna say something, and I'll apologize ahead of time if my language or my words hurt somebody. So 5 months or almost 5 or 6 months ago, when Mark came with the BSTX and blockchain idea, how it can help and how it can put all the manipulation behind and everything, and how I know how much we, you, Tara, Jen, PJ, everybody who's here who wanted to do something, so we can get rid of the manipulation, and how much shit people had to take just for, so it was not for one person. We wanted to help everybody, right? Everybody, all of you guys remember how much shit we had to take just because we wanted to do something so we can get rid of that manipulation. I bought Overstock at 36 or 37 when it was down because I knew Mark was involved, and when he came with that blockchain, that Overstock went $20 up to almost 55. So I made money. So that being said, after 5 months, here we are. Our stock got hammered to $12. And, people right now, a lot of people can't afford to pay their bills. So I'm saying to those people, those who are in this call, is please pay your bills first. And don't invest more than you can afford to lose. Don't worry about which stock is down or you can make money. If you can't afford to pay your own bills, don't sacrifice anything. Don't take any loans or today I got a DM from one of my friends. He's like, he's gonna get a loan or something. I'm like, dude, he's like, I already have loan for that I'm paying. I said, how much interest you are paying? 23% interest to take a loan and buy a stock. Please do not do that. Oh. Anyone who says you to that, keep buying and buying, you need to do you. If you can't afford to buy in a fucking stock, if you can afford to hold it, hold it. If you have to sell a fucking stock to pay your bills, do you. Don't listen to any YouTuber, anybody. Because at the end of the day, if you lose your money, nobody's going to come to save your ass. Because a lot of people in this play, they have already made their money and they are already set up and they are already continuing to make money. Some of them are here just for followers. Some are here just for their selfish needs. And majority of you guys are good, honest people. Don't lose money. Pay your bills. Take care of your family. Take care of your kids. If you have any money left to invest, invest it. Because this thing, if anybody fucking can say this thing can squeeze today or tomorrow in 6 months, they are fucking lying. 13, 14 months ago, these YouTubers, some of them, they started. Now they changed their fucking tone because, oh, more as is happening, squeeze is happening, got so many people invested more than they had to. And now the same people, oh, you should not invest. You know, people are already down thousands of dollars. Do you please listen to yourself? And the less you deal with drama, like a lot of these calls, they have become nothing but a entertainment drama source. It's like a soap opera. So you do you, and do what's best for you. If you can afford it, it's fine. But at the end of the day, only you can pay your bills. Nobody's gonna come pay your bills.
Mental and physical health first, you guys, always.
Yeah.
Family first.
You know, and
I've never heard you drop so many F-bombs in my life, Sugar. Holy mackerel, you're mad.
I am sorry, man. I just it hurts me because sometimes, when I treat people like my friends, and if I tag some, maybe he's a CEO, okay, I tagged him and I said something, and you especially when you treat people with love and respect, and you expect people to understand you better, it's not just about money, man. I can afford because I work very hard. But I when I see people just because of, okay, they want followers, because they want some kind of selfish need. There is more to life than this, man. Life is not just about how many followers and likes you get. So I'm sorry.
There's actually Sugar, there's actually a phenomenon about that that has been the center of focus of research for the last few years, sociologically, if I recall. And there's a tendency for people to want to place themselves in another person's shoes in order to, kind of imagine living that lifestyle. So that's why we've seen a lot of these people who made it big on TikTok that are, buying these mansions, or they're renting these mansions to do all their TikTok. What they're doing is they're creating this false sense of not necessarily existence, but a false sense of like
influence
and things that you can attain, and like that, they make it quick, and you see these names jump up that came out of nowhere, and you're like, whoa, what did they do? How did they do that? How can I do that? Because a lot of people want to make a quick buck, either to, get out and not work, or, maybe they have more ambitious plans or whatever, but they go into it without doing their research because they think it's a sure thing, because they want to believe it, right? You want that to be true. They said it in The Big Short. It's like you want Vinette to be right, and he's like, yeah, of course I want him to be right. The banks have been screwing all these people over, charging insane fees, and if they've been stupid and he can take advantage of that and kick them in their wallets, he would take any opportunity to do that. And that's a similar, but then they say they need to do the research, right? And that's where a lot of people stop and fail. They see this, wait, you're telling me there's this insane opportunity here and nobody's in on it? Like, how's nobody in on this thing? Everybody would be in on this thing. And it's because, at the time, the availability of information, going back to the other conversations, I remembered the train of thought, but
advertising lifestyles and making it look so amazing. Yep. Like half of these TikTokers that go out and do this stuff are literally like, hey, can I use your Lambo to make my video, and this and that, and going to people's houses and posting fake pictures. Somebody on Twitter.
It's called perceived wealth.
Yes.
It's a phenomenon that when you perceive the wealth, even if it's not real, so all these Instagram, influencers that go travel the world and take all these pictures and are co-opted, or the people who are making it big on TikTok or Twitch or YouTube or whatever.
I got banned on TikTok.
And we're seeing another resurgence of that behavior due to the perceived wealth, both that's presented in these Instagram things, but also due to the perceived wealth of our economy, in that we've been in a bull market since 2010, right? So we've been in a bull market for over a decade, and people are accustomed to just being able to buy and win, right? You buy, you hold, you win over a period of time, which works in the long game. But when a bull market reverses, like what we're seeing right now unfold, it hammers everybody who's not already ahead of it really hard.
Jay, I agree with both you and Spence. I don't. You want people need to make money. That's okay. Fine, make money. But in return, are you really helping people, those who need help? If you want to just show people the hope and not help them and in return make all the money, that's wrong. I never made a single cent of anybody, and I was raised to work hard. My parents raised me to work hard and make a living on my own. I won't make a single fucking cent of anybody. The day I had to do that, I'll give up my life, because that's just wrong. You don't know what people are going through, and who made people sheriff? Who made people, that they can, so you can't talk to Adam Aaron, or you can't tag him and say, who the fuck are you, man? That's my CEO too, as much as he's your fucking CEO. But God forbid, Sugar can go and tag, oh yeah, you eat this and that. Like, dude, who cares?
Well, Sugar, look at my most popular post with the most likes was me questioning Adam Aaron. The entire community, by far, the majority of the community, is having doubts about his ability to protect the shareholders. So anybody coming in who's like, Adam Aaron's untouchable, you're a fool if you do not question your CEO.
And you guys know me. I have never been disrespectful to anyone, and I never will be, because that's just not how I am raised.
Well, but let's say this. Adam Aaron's doing a phenomenal job at the basics of the company restructuring, but he's just not there for the shareholders, man. You know what I mean? Like, we bailed them out.
And it was my single, I asked very respectfully, like, can we do something, like somehow we can, if we can find out we own over 90% float, there might be something we could do to fucking do and put an end to this.
I have to say something, Sugar, before you have a stroke. And before I have a stroke.
Oh my God.
We can do something. We can band together as a group, even 20 of us, and sue Adam Aaron for a reconciled share count. If nothing else works, that works. And so don't ever think that we can't do anything, because we absolutely can.
What's wrong with changing the board, some of the board members? Why can't we have our people from our community on the board? Why? Okay, Adam is doing really good job, but can we not put our people on the out of 4 or 5 million people, we can't even find 2 people to put on the board of AMC? Is it really that difficult?
If we were, so
we could.
No, wait, hold on. When you're on a board like that and you're coming in cold, there is no way that your presence on that board will change anything. And that's it on a corporate board, and that's the same thing on an educational policy board. You come in cold, you're not changing anything. You're just sitting there and you're a body. You may get a couple of words in edgewise. No one will care. Forget the idea of a board. We need to do something.
Get the debt paid, obviously, you know, or this reconciled share account, getting AMC listed on the blockchain. You know, there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of things that need to get done to get this going here. So
we all agree that we want to pay that debt off. Even though I am hurting, thousands of people are hurting, we are still willing to do pay. If you change nothing will change. So you have to make efforts, man. I mean, you know, if people have to unfollow me or say stuff bad to me, go right ahead, man. I'm not here for followers and
you're good, sugar, and
you're good. So you just hit them with all of it, like we're doing. You know, the STO, the reconcile share count, but try to get someone on the board. I mean, that might be tough. All those things, you just keep banging away at it. You know, sometimes you're banging your head, but you know that's fine. Sometimes we need to bang our head to straighten things out. But you know, you just keep at it. That's it. You just keep at it, keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. And I mean, he does listen. He does, but maybe not at this moment. But he is listening. But I see CEO Adam as old school CEO, okay, who's being dragged into the future of what's going on, and I think he's half surprised at of the things he has accomplished. But I see him as old CEO, where popcorn's great, you know what I mean? Revenue's great. Those are standard CEO things to do for a company, but it's this blockchain and that. Now, who knows? Maybe it is the board director that retired was holding it back. Maybe there's more. Who knows? But just keep hammering it.
I want to add, I think more about the DCC and less about company boards and stuff. I mean, the DCC is its own private entity, and its members are the hedge funds and the finance institution. I think there needs to be like more SEC interference within the DCC to represent the retail investors, because they don't really have access to the DCC.
Can I just say something before we go to the DTCC conversation? I think that when we go at Aaron with reconciled share count, BSTX, the STO, and we hit him with all these different things, it dilutes our ideas. I think that we need to be methodical about one thing, and then when we don't hear anything after a month or 2 months with that one thing, we check it off, we go to the next thing, we go to the next thing, and we go to the next thing. I mean, we're going to be here for the long run. We should try it like this. In my opinion, I think that may garner more attention, because there is power in numbers. And if 30 of us are asking for a STO and the other 4 of us are asking for a reconciled share count, and someone else is asking to get on the blockchain, we need to concentrate that and then just tick it off as he doesn't do anything. And then at the end, I think bringing suit for that reconciled share count would be the thing to work, because nothing is happening. We see the dilution. We see the selling pressure that is on the stock that is really, really disgusting to me. We see the manipulation, whether it's legal or inside the law. That's whatever it is, it's still not moral. And again, Spence says, how can retail hold 90% of the float and still drop 5% a week for the past, or 3%, 2% a week?
And real quick, PJ, it was Daddy Jr. Who posted a few hours ago that AMC dark pool. What about the dark pools? That AMC dark pool was over 70% today. Over 70%. How can that be possible? We own 90%. It's absolutely unfucking real. How can hedges run a stock with a negative, I think you said 22% float available? This is crazy.
Well, that might be part of the problem Adam Aaron is facing himself, that there's nobody to even go to begin with. Even if we do a reconciled share count, is the SEC or the DTCC even going to do anything? I mean, it's so fucking broken, it's not even funny. But I think Adam Aaron is not going to get any help from the SEC or any regulators.
I think the things everybody's missing with and trust me, I get it. AMC, GameStop, whatever, the two biggest meme stocks. The most exposure has been in these two stocks, but it's a systematic problem that's way bigger than AMC or GameStop. And to just like put all of your marbles on doing something about AMC isn't going to fix the systematic problem until it's actually exposed market-wide.
Well, you're definitely everything everybody's doing to try to fight market corruption is great. But at the same time, with all the regulations that Gary Gensler has now put out, the fines and fees for the infractions against those regulations are petty. So it's really interesting to think that the same effect we're having could be the same effect Adam Aaron would have in trying to expose that the stock is so ridiculously shorted, there might not be any action to take. I think the funds and the banks are so over leveraged that everybody knows it's just going to be the first one who tries to leave the door. Then it's all going to come tumbling down. Then once everything crashes, the DOJ and the SEC will go in to scoop up all the bad actors. But I personally, I think Adam Aaron has seen what we want for sure. It might be a matter of the covenant not letting him do it, or the fact that if we do it, he doesn't think anything will happen from the regulators. Because everybody knows, we honestly, reconciled share count would be great, but we already know we're over the float just based on basic data. You know what I mean? Like, we already know that.
Those shares that are sitting at the DTCC, until they have enough for the DOJ to go in there and expose all the ghost shares, they really can't do anything because the ghost shares don't exist.
We got 14 requests. Sorry. Hey, guys, I'm going to try to start cycling people through. Sorry, everybody that's been waiting. We probably ought to better go to hands for a while, Jen, before we get.
I think that's a good idea, considering the fact that we have 15 requests. So let's do hands. Okay, Chris, is it Chris or Christian? You got your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, how you guys doing today?
Hi, good. You?
I'm doing good. I was just curious to know of what other stocks you think are being manipulated right now, or do you think that it's just AMC specifically that's being targeted?
GME, Overstock, BlackBerry,
but
man.
I guess and maybe this isn't the right room to talk about it, but I just you look at those companies and they're just not really cash flow positive companies.
Overstock's extremely positive, and they're getting ready to do a share buyback, and they've been shorted relentlessly this past month.
Okay. But is there a company you think that outside of Overstock that is, a cash flow positive company that has returned capital to its shareholders that is being manipulated?
Yes, Snap Inc. Snap is extremely shorted, over 20% the last time I looked.
Snapchat has not. It's made a profit in the quarter, though.
Okay, but what's going to happen next quarter? I mean, an AMC has made a profit.
What's the point of a company being cash flow positive or not? Manipulation's manipulation.
I believe that if the company is, cash flow positive, it probably is able to be valued better than a company that, doesn't really is as profitable, because then you're going to have to use different, less reliable metrics to value the company.
You're obviously talking about like a discounted cash flow model, but what the fuck does that matter? Like, we're not talking about purely fundamentals.
Okay, well, I appreciate Spence because he hosts this call, and he takes some crap sometimes, and I appreciate that for having dialogue. But my first time on Twitter was being in these spaces, and I've heard the same thing, but nothing's happened.
What's up, Hamza?
Hello. Can you hear me?
What's good?
Nothing much, man. I'm just kind of frustrated with the whole situation. It's just so not fair to a point where it's just I'm kind of giving up. But I'm not sure if you guys watched that interview with what's his name, Gary Gensler, and this other guy where they were exposing the stock market, and how Gary Gensler stated how every time they put in a lawsuit against hedge funds, they straight up lose. And it's like now it feels like there's nothing we can do. If the SEC can't help us, they do not they do not care. So I'm just thinking, what's going to cause this squeeze if the SEC let this manipulation keep going on?
Not that this would cause a squeeze, but what needs to happen is we need to get people in Congress that are going to write appropriate laws to correct these markets, because the SEC can regulate, but they can't write laws. Congress needs to create laws to govern the U.S. stock market through the SEC, where they have the power to actually go at market corruption. So,
but I feel like most of them, they do not want this situation to ever happen, because they're getting paid off with big money by hedge funds. Politicians, they all get paid off. Like, why would they risk their income for like this squeeze to happen? I feel like people nowadays, the higher ups, are very greedy, every single one of them, and they do not want this squeeze or whatever it's called to ever happen. And I feel like they're gonna get away with it. But I'm still holding to see what happens. But yeah, it's just really frustrating. I have no like other option to hold now, because I could have sold at 72, but I feel like I was brainwashed by Trey. But it is what it is.
You will. I hate to hear this, and I hate to hear this because I can hear it in your voice, even though I don't really know you. I mean, most of us here could have sold at 72. Sometimes I want to kick myself in the ass for not doing it. But what I think is really going to happen is that we're going to get that chance again. If it's not 72, maybe it'll be 60, maybe it'll be 102. Like all the other analysts say, it will go in a cycle. And I truly believe that if you look at the wave, I think that it's going to happen. Don't feel down. If you can afford to hold, don't take a loss.
Well, here's
Thank you. I totally agree. I do agree with that. It will go up,
just
probably to like 60, down. 70.
Mm-hmm.
But when people say 800, like, come on, like, it could, but they will never allow that to ever happen.
Well, think of this. Think of the basics of this. They were short AMC at $1.90 to $9 consistently before they got caught by, say, Wall Street Bets, right? Then it shot up to $21. They had to short that further and shut the market down to prevent an infinity squeeze from happening. If they wouldn't have taken away the buy button, this thing would have squeezed out back on January 28th like nobody's business. So they had to shut it down and continue shorting from 21 down. So now you have shorts from $1.90 all the way up to 21. Then they started piling back in that $21 to $5 range, and then it slowly started picking up steam until we hit 72 again. Anybody short that was in originally, any added positions at 72 were just to try to reduce their bag. They're stuck in this thing so bad, dude. I agree with PJ completely that my organic price for AMC, now that they're reconstructed their business, they're paying down debt. We have a massive blockbuster lineup this year, and we're getting ready to have new revenue streams. I'm personally holding until I see $50 organically before I'll even consider selling a single share, because I will not sell for a loss. That's just me. So
I want to add to
Thank
that
you.
too, is you
Thank
can
you.
look all across the tickers over the last year and maybe even a little more than that. And there has never been so many tickers that have these little mini squeezes, which just shows that there's these little ones without the huge retail backing that AMC has are able to double up, triple up, 400 times. You can look at all the markets on, the day's top plus percentages, and it's ridiculous. And our day is going to come too. It's just going to take longer because the amount of influence that's being put into this.
Well, just consider this. If anybody can come in logically and tell me that AMC should be below $20 a share with over 90% of retail float ownership and 20% short interest, the supply and demand just doesn't meet up there. And like I said, my small theory on this is that as soon as we're in there buying shares that might not even exist, they're immediately shorting them. It's just, there's something really wrong with AMC stock right now, and that is the play. I'm going to capitalize on this getting blown up one day. What's going to happen, and this is, I think, why Google's doing a stock split too. They're trying to lure people away from these plays. They're trying to get people to come in on Google at $150 because it's more attractive to retail, which is going to happen in June. They need it to happen by June, because if GME and AMC holders are not out of their plays by that time, this liquidity crunch happening in the big tech stocks and the Chinese indexes and everything, they're not going to have any money left, period, because they're locked in their shorts and they're down on their longs. So it's got to give, for the markets to operate in any form without completely just shutting down, something's going to have to give and somebody's going to have to pay. Because when people see, oh, well, these big hedge funds and banks don't have to pay their bills, why would I bet against somebody I can't beat?
It's stretched to its breaking point, and when it snaps,
and we're close,
it's gonna snap.
We're close, you guys. When Netflix goes down 40% and Facebook's down 30-40%, Melvin's blowing up their fund on purpose. China's down 12% now on the Dragon, which is going to affect Baba. Is ARK still really heavily vested in Baba? Does anybody know? I mean, just think of that. It's freaking wild, man.
We'll see what happens. I hope it does.
If you think back to 08, 09, a lot of these banks that blew up and made this shit really bad in 08, 09 were like 8 or 9 times leveraged, and some of them were more recklessly leveraged. If you look at numbers nowadays, there's some banks that are up.
Uh-oh.
Sound like we... Oh my gosh, I did it. I'm so sorry. I wanted to follow him and I went to hit his thing and I removed him, and I hope he can. Oh, I'm so sorry. He
can't come back to the room now either. You better DM him.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?
Hazma.
Oh my goodness.
Hamza.
It was.
I would like to.
Hamza.
I'd like to recommend a book to you. It's called The Art of Execution.
What's it about?
So the guy ran a huge fund, and he gave 100 investors a bunch of cash to invest in their most highest conviction trades. And it just goes about execution in terms of, like, one way to think of it is in real estate, they say location, location, location. With equities, they say money management. And I just think hearing, what you've said, I think that it'd be a pretty good book for you to read about money management execution overall, and would probably provide some value. I followed you. I could send you the link to the book if you'd like it. I'm just here to.
Yeah, please do. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Anyways, I'm gonna mute my mic, but thank you, PJS and Spencer. So yeah, bye.
Yeah, thanks for your question, man. I'm trying to see if I can bring O'Sullivan back, but I don't think he can come back. I don't like that about Twitter. It's too easy to accidentally remove somebody.
It was O'Sullivan. My bad. I thought it was
yeah. I just sent him a link, but I don't know if he can come back now. That sucked. I wanted to hear what he was saying too. Way to go, PJ.
It happens, Just like when I've accidentally, how many times, Spence, have I muted everyone?
I am so sorry, you guys. What I thought he was saying was so brilliant I went to see if I followed him, and suddenly it was gone. And I'm like, what the heck was that? And I guess I have to actually tap someone's picture and not just what comes up when you see them. I'm so sorry. I just tweeted
everybody on YouTube's calling you infiltrator shill now, PJ.
Get out of here. Are you kidding? Seriously, Spence?
No.
Oh, I was like, what?
Hey, Spence, I had a quick question.
Yeah, what's up?
I'm honestly really curious. I do a lot of crowdfunded investments, but I've always been curious as to the VR investor, part of your name.
Yeah. So on my Oculus headset, I actually do most of my investing on a virtual desktop because I can stand up and have the universe around me with 20 screens. And funny enough, Fidelity Active Trader Pro works really well on the virtual desktop. And then you can have YouTube TV with Fox Business up and Fidelity and Active Trader Pro and Webull and everything you need all around you all at once. It's really, really cool.
That's cool, man. I thought that you invested into some VR companies or something, but that's even cooler, to be honest. So props.
I definitely did not invest in Meta. Thank God. I wanted to short Meta. I was short Meta, and I got talked out of it by some. If I ever find the person who talked me out of that in that space call, I swear to God, man, I was short Meta at $332, and I would have gained like crazy on it. But guys, yeah, okay. The basics of this. The long positions are all down massively, right? Melvin's up shit's creek with a fork. They lost so much on Affirm and Netflix and whatnot. And funny enough, Citadel seems to do the exact opposite of Melvin lately. It's almost like, here's $2 billion, blow up your fund so we can capitalize off of you to generate liquidity to hold our positions together. But I don't think they expected Ukraine. I don't think they expected the Chinese catastrophe that's happening with their markets. And these stocks keep going down. I mean, Amazon took a hit today. What is Netflix? I didn't even check Netflix yet. Netflix is down 3% today. It's still happening. The longs are going down that these big funds and banks hold, and their shorts are trying to keep up with it. But I think we're getting close to overlapping them. And when we do, they're going to have to liquidate. They're going to have to cover because the government and the Fed is going to have to come in to save whatever is left of the economy. They can't let everything just crumble apart and say, oh, sorry, America, we destroyed everybody's future. They're going to have to come in and fix it at some point in time. And I'm thinking it's going to have a lot to do with midterms. I think the blame on this is going to get passed around like crazy for midterms, which is in November. So between now and November, I'm telling you, we're going to see some fireworks in one form or another.
Hey guys, did you see? I just pinned to the top Wet Dirt Kurt, his snapshot of the Bloomberg terminal alerts today, and I noticed that Jen just posted from Unusual Whales, according to the SEC, broker dealers should collect much from counterparties. This is going to be quite interesting this week, and I'm super glad I have off.
Plus, there's the Fed meeting this week to talk about whether they're going to raise rates or not.
So it's Wednesday, I think. It's either tomorrow or Wednesday.
Okay.
I think it's Wednesday though.
Yeah. Okay.
Broker dealers should collect margin to the highest extent possible. Broker dealers should collect margin from counterparties to the fullest extent possible. Wow.
Also, two things. If you go look at the S&P 500 index, so SPX, or you go look at one of the futures contracts for the S&P 500, you can see that it closed the day below 4,200. The pivot point where there was a lot of support was basically in this like 43.50 to like 42.90 range, or maybe down to like 42.50. But once we cross that 42.50 pivot, it basically, like, we just crossed over, or we are crossing over today into like the last major support zone before we get down to like 39.70, and then it just starts stair stepping down with like a not very strong support before we get down to like pre-pandemic levels. So like the situation is that because the S&P is turned down like this, it's a pretty clear sign that, you know, we had seen declines earlier on in the small and mid cap, and now we're seeing the big boys get hit essentially. And that's a broader spectrum on the health of our stock market. And it seems to be going very bearish very quick. So I think we're going to see this unravel, you know, in the coming weeks. I don't know how many, but like, and I think that's one of the reasons for this notification too, is like, hey, you need to make sure you're collecting collateral, because if they don't and one of these things blows up, then this thing will drop off super hard really fast.
Yeah, it's coming. It's a byproduct of too much money going to the system too fast for the entire pandemic era. And then just it's fucking wild, man. Anyways, dry powder.
I was going to say, but then you add all the short interest that's in the SPY, which is at highest level ever. And the more that goes down, it's going to have to bounce back up when they cover all their short percentages on the SPY.
I'll say it time and time again. The way to fix the economy right now is for these shorts to cover their bad positions and dump the money into the retail market so we can go spend it locally. We will have an economic boom.
Hamza, Spence, I just want to say real quick to Hamza when he said, you know, people were talking about 800 or 1,000. When this thing goes up, which it will, I mean, I have more faith in this thing, even what I had before, because of the community, not for one particular person, because I believe in this community. When this thing goes up or it runs up, you do you. Don't listen to any YouTuber. A lot of them will be not even around to say anything, because they'll evaporate on their own. When the stock goes up, they'll make their money and they get out. But you do you, and everybody who's listening to this, you have to do what's best for you. If it's selling at 500, it's good. If it's 1,000, it's 200, 800, whatever is best for you and your family, you do you. Don't listen to people and get hung around, and then people will not be around later on. So you have to do what's best for you and your family, brother. And you know that.
For sure. Thank you.
Going on what Shug said too, is the psychology game that they're playing with, you know, all the transfer of information and stuff out there in the ads and everything. You got, when you're hearing YouTube videos or these chat rooms and space calls, you got to have the mentality that, are they your psychological thoughts, or is that a manipulation of your psychological?
Are they telling you what you want to hear?
Can I say one thing that I heard?
Is your conviction based on you wanting to believe what you're hearing, or is it because you believe what you're hearing? And I think you, like, every time I see something, I ask myself that question. Like, all right, is this just what I want to hear and want to believe, or can I validate for myself without letting them outside influences affect my thought process?
Well, I try to avoid YouTube videos now, but I've got another question that I read up on Reddit somewhere on how they're managing to reduce the price. Can I go ahead? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah. So basically, what I read was basically hedge funds and whatever market makers are there. They basically use synthetics to obviously drive down the price. And then apparently they slowly cover. You know how we had that burst from 816 to 19 or 20? And we had like a few instances where that happened throughout the course since June. Apparently that's them covering. Is that possible? Even though the short interest is still 20. Yeah. I'm just wondering, is that possible?
My thought on that is that they've just been flipping the same 1% of that 20%. I mean, sometimes it went down to like 17, 18% to 22% range, but the other 15+% have been not covered at the least. And it's constantly that same 3 to 4% that they're using that are probably naked or ghost FTDs and stuff like that to manipulate the price. And when you look at the price swings on just 3% of that 15 to 22% that they're short, what's going to happen when they actually cover the other 17%?
Hello, my name is Harish. I have a question here.
Thank you.
Can I go ahead with my question?
Yeah, go ahead.
See, will there be any suspension on AMC GME when it is going up? Because I've been hearing like there would be a suspension or something like that. So if you can give me,
there could be, but nobody can predict that here because we're not the regulators. You know what I mean?
So
there are predetermined halts that can happen based on volatility, which is in the SEC's regulations you can read. But as far as them just saying, okay, we're going to shut it down, I nobody in here could tell you that.
Okay, so I mean that's the only risk that I'm seeing there. That's why I asked you this question, because I understand that this will definitely run, but if you look at all other runs and they say that, hey, this was a mistake from the market maker, now let's go and suspend it. That's exactly what I'm trying to understand, and just wanted to find an answer for that. Thank you very much.
I mean, they shut down the entire exchange when nickel started squeezing, and they've already shut us down on January 28th. So I would expect, I hate to be bearer of bad news, but if you guys haven't been seeing what's happening in the markets lately,
exactly,
when AMC GME starts popping, expect it so that you're not panicking when it happens and you don't either panic sell or buy or whatever. Calm, cool, collected. If you don't know what to do during that time, get online and find somebody that you think you can trust with some advice, or call someone you know personally and figure out what your risk threshold is.
Absolutely. There was one other point that I wanted to make on what I last said too, is even though they've been fluctuating that 3% or whatever to manipulate the market, you also got to remember there was over like 13% dilution since January squeeze. So it's to maintain that short level actually requires more shares short than what it required then to be at 20%.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your question, man. You know what's really interesting on this Bloomberg terminal post is it says SEC urges broker dealers to monitor risk management limits closely intraday and escalate any breaches to senior management. You know what that tells me? That they are already past their risk limits and they know it. It's just like the movie Margin Call, man. They fired the risk assessor because he was telling them what they didn't want to hear, and it's all about to blow up. And like I said, it's going to be the first one out the door. This is wild, man. All this Bloomberg terminal post today, all of it is awesome.
Spence, I did see that there was some question about the timestamp on that. And maybe some folks were saying it was a fake. I don't think it is. But what do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, it's 24-hour clock, so that's what? 8 o'clock is when those were hitting. 14 March 1955-07. I think those are, I think that's time. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong, if that's not time, if it's something else, or if it's just the internal clock time on Bloomberg. I don't know if it's actually like real time.
So that's time, but it would be 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 7:55.
Yeah, it's right around 8 o'clock. But is that like clock time, like our clock time, or
That's
is that
military time. Yeah, no, that's 24-hour clock time. And then
right?
1900 would be 7 p.m. This is what the conversation
Well,
is about.
it's 5 o'clock in Mountain Time right now, so it's 7:31 Eastern. So
no, it's not. I'm on the East Coast. It's 5:30.
oh, I changed my clock to Eastern. Geez, I'm so dumb. I changed my clock to market time Eastern. I forgot.
Oh, okay. I'm like, wait a minute.
Maybe,
Yeah,
I don't know.
so it's interesting, but some folks explained it away. I'm not that smart and I can't really follow that. But I wouldn't be surprised if this was directly from the terminal and on the money. And Trey shared it too, so you would think that he would, I don't know.
I always do everything in UTC, and I think and UTC essentially lines up with GMT and GMT, and I think in the summertime it's British summertime, so BST. But anyway, UTC obviously doesn't change ever, right? It's constant, and the other ones are.
Something's odd about the timestamp. I don't totally follow, but I can confirm the validity of it because you can actually go to the SEC's website and they have the entire statement posted there as well.
Whoop, whoop.
Oh, lovely.
QE. I am jacked. I'm so glad. I was so deflated when I saw that conversation.
Here, I'll put it up at the top. Hold on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, E. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, it's good. I mean, you never know what the fuck to trust on Twitter or anywhere these days.
No.
Hey, Spencer, can I say something real quick?
Nah, man. We gotta go.
No, I just want to say to everyone, just be careful with people out here, because you still have people bashing AMC, talking about that the shorts are not fucked, that we are fucked, and just be aware with the fakes. They're out there.
Oh yeah, the FUD was so bad this week.
They're everywhere.
CNK is gonna squeeze you guys. CNK is gonna squeeze.
They'll come to the speaker. They'll stand by. They won't really say much. I don't know if they get credit or extra pay for being there or not, but just be careful with them.
And thank
They're
you.
all over.
Too. Thank you. I'm actually checking to see if I follow him right now. So thank you.
Love you, Jen. Take care.
Love you too. You too.
How many people in this community have seen their search engine FUD go up since they started doing space calls?
The search engine, what?
Like when you do internet searches, like the FUD articles that pop up right away in your search.
Oh yeah, that was before the space calls.
That was this past 2 weeks has been horrible with FUD, with ape hunters coming back in and posting stuff, Weebles posting absolute garbage articles. That article we talked about earlier where they were bashing Adam Aaron for charging $1 more for Batman tickets was the biggest piece of shit article I've ever read in my entire life. I had it pulled up. We need to go over that and identify the author.
Because I noticed, like, now whenever I want to search something specific, I can't even get to it because they just flood my fucking internet articles with all this garbage that no matter what I type in, the same crap comes up, and I can't find what I'm looking for.
Yeah, they're so concerned about what we're buying. When was the last time institution tried to really save you money? It shows you it's bullshit.
And if y'all notice, fellas, our Silverback CEO said we own 90% and more of the float. So what does that tell you? All this articles, all this garbage, none is working, folks. None of that garbage is working. I still hodl, I keep buying.
The YouTube algos got all jacked up too because I started getting all these different people in my feed. But did you guys notice this past couple weeks, Twitter has basically removed all the trending hashtags for AMC. Like it just disappeared all in one day. The only thing really trending right now is AMC.
Yeah, what's up with that?
It's Twitter, man. They've done this nonstop to us through this whole movement. They've suppressed. I mean, you can see now that I'm not shadow banned. I was getting like maybe 10 likes on my posts maybe 3 weeks ago. And then I post 3 things this morning and it blows up with like 1,800 likes. They're literally shadow banning and suppressing people in AMC. GME too. There's something between them and the success of their company with these big hedge fund banks. Obviously, it's why would they suppress anything retail related? What's the point?
Right. There's no other reason that I can really think of.
Check your hashtags. The only one I see trending with any type of value number under it is just hashtag AMC. It's wild. Man, I'm glad that Bloomberg terminal thing is legit. I'm telling you guys, the most important thing on that is their risk tolerance level warnings. That's huge to me.
When does the new FTD report come out?
Shit, I don't know.
Should be any day now. This week, I would think.
I mean, is it even legit? Is it even reported correctly? That's the thing. I'm like, just how can we make any type of logical trade and we get the worst data possible handed to us?
No, but I watch it because it happened in the FTD report to what the stock ticker was doing within 2-3 days after that report. Like the price will go up because they're covering that 1 or 2%, and then it'll shoot right back down when they reestablish their shorts back into the market.
Yeah, I don't know the exact day. I'll have to look that up. Oh, man, I hope this thing – I don't even care if AMC goes up, but I hope this thing pops off this week. So I want to start seeing funds in the news getting clobbered, man. Just absolutely just butchered.
I don't know how long ago this got posted, but I just found something. I need to look at the validity of the article, but it says the SEC shuts Oxford International Group, others over alleged capital market violations. What? It was posted today at 5:26 p.m.
Can you pin it to the call, Brent?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me tweet it and see. Let's see. Oh, there's the Twitter button.
Yeah, take your time. That's cool.
Your computer programmer can't even pin to the nest. What's going on there?
Hey, give me some time, right? I gotta make the tweet
God
first,
damn it.
and then I've gotta pin it to the top.
It
That's
takes
how it works.
minutes. Yeah, you gotta tweet out, and then once you got your tweet out, you gotta go to the thing and pin it, and yeah.
Oh, the good news is that Morbius tickets are on sale now.
Yeah,
I hear they've been selling out.
And Swing posted that Sonic 2 tickets are also advanced. Are they either are getting ready to or they are, and there's like some gaming package that you can win with it, so that's pretty cool.
Also, the way I came across that that article, I was not looking for any of those things. I was just looking for public announcements from the SEC, because when I went to the SEC website, I wasn't seeing the stuff that was being talked about the warnings that we were seeing in the Bloomberg Journal. So I was just trying to go and correct where I was looking in the wrong spot. and ended up running across that.
I think the news is suppressive this time around for this crash, unlike 2008 and 9, because as soon as the news came out and said anything about it, people panicked and bounced. This time they're kind of like just keeping the keeping it on the down low, because this should be on Fox Business. This should be on CNN Money. This should be on everything right now.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys there?
That's what I was just about to ask.
I'm buying my Morbius tickets right now.
Just having a quiet moment.
I was doing the same thing. I'm looking at Morbius tickets.
All right, a moment of reflection. Can
AMC.
you imagine this SEC posting that? I'm in shock. It's like, prepare for war, people, because we're going in. And it's not even war. It's more like, prepare to get clobbered, you moron.
I think it's more of a, and this is a meme if anybody hasn't seen it, pardon my language, but it's more like a prepare for anal. Like, I need to actually make a meme like immediately on this.
Hey, don't clench up.
Oh my God.
I wonder how much of that.
Ken Griffin's going to need his mayo.
Mayo. That statement has to do with their insight into the DOJ.
Well, say this. You're the SEC and you're the DOJ, and you walk in the room. Gary Gensler comes to you on the side. Says, hey, man, these guys are so over-leveraged, they're about to collapse the total global economy. Oh, shit. Well, I guess we better look into it. And the deeper you look and the deeper you go, the worse and worse it gets, to the point where countries are going to war over it. Who's going to be the one to break the bad news? Are you going to have a front man, or are you going to start just chipping away at it block by block and slowly putting the information out there so it deflates instead of it blows up? Nobody wants to be the front man on this, that's for sure.
No, and the SEC is an easy one to put it out there because they just regulate the rules. They didn't make the rules.
It's going to be wild. I'll tell you, this time, if they don't put people in jail for doing this shit, people are wise to it now. There's enough people wise to it where everybody's 401ks. Good God, I can't imagine people's 401ks right now. They've got to be looking like absolute just dumpster fires. But if you have a 401k, I would probably, if I still had one, I'd be maxing out my contributions here pretty soon.
Not financial. My wife just did her state retirement in Pennsylvania, and we just locked it all in because even though it was a little bit of a hit for their early retirement, it's probably better than the hit her retirement fund would have taken to stay.
Yeah, it sucks. My mom's not even a year away from retiring. Well, she's more, I guess, pension, post office, but I was like, man, they're doing it again. It feels like they line this up with like mass retiring opportunities to just drain people's retirement funds. It's fucking wild.
And you know what? With those kind of pensions that are managed like that, there's nothing you can do about it. Can't take it out. I mean, you can move it to something more stable, but then there's X amount of years before you can move it back.
I told her, I said, you might as well just work one more year. Yeah. Just work one more year and then retire. Don't retire right now.
Well, I'm already resigned to working like another 3 years. And I hadn't had that thought in my mind 2 years ago. But, I mean, I'm still...
Well, your students will be happy.
Yes, and plus I'm still way too young. I don't know what the hell I would do sitting home. Golf, cocktails, that's not my style. So, we'll see.
Did you guys see the Gasparino's new tweet that the Germany, I think they are banning the payment for order flow. And I think our government, I think the SEC is trying to put it on Capitol Hill to Congress with the same thing. And Gasparino is Gasparino is talking like, and he's going like he's speaking in the favor of these hedge funds, man. This guy is just like, that's open. Like, why?
He protects payment for order flow, dude. All he is Ken Griffin's mouthpiece. That's it. That's all he is.
And nobody does anything to this piece of shit. I mean, look, he's openly supporting, like, saying like they have to provide proof that it's hurting like retail folks. Like, dude, are you serious, man?
Well,
I think
we gotta get crazy. We gotta like something about this.
He got pretty offended over my SEC reporting post that I made, and I didn't even mention his name. He instantly took to it, and it's funny that he had to delete all those tweets for the past couple months. By the way, I filed my SEC complaint in February. Or was it December? Early February. So he got really like butthurt over that. He retweeted it and was like, "Oh, yeah, conspiracy theorist."
Oh my
so
God.
gross.
And I don't follow him. I don't give a shit what he has to say. I just ignore it, so whatever. Fucking Asperino. He's so obsessed with us. It's like gross.
It further confirms that he's literally just Ken Griffin's mouthpiece. He said about payment for order flow, because it doesn't make any sense for him to protect payment for order flow.
But it even shows like how desperate and how scared these guys are. Like, it shows their desperation, and it shows like these guys are so worried now.
Yeah, no, you're right, Shug. It totally does.
Well, if this Bloomberg terminal stuff it seems legit, but if it is legit, that's like them like firing a warning shot off, going, "Hey, you guys are about to dump."
It's totally legit. It's totally legit. It was on the SEC site, right? I mean, I'm so excited. It is going down, and I've been waiting for this only because I'm sick and tired of waiting for it, right? When you get to that point where let's just get it done and let's start to heal, that's where I am.
I'll lose money and be okay as long as I see some fireworks.
I found the post on the SEC website. I tweeted it and I put it up in the nest up top.
Yeah, and I think E left. Thanks for him for doing that also, and thanks Jay Brett for putting that up there.
Thank you. I retweeted it.
For whatever reason, when I was on the SEC website earlier, like not even 5 minutes before that, the announcement wasn't there. So I think I was hitting a cached version of the SEC website instead of an updated version. That gets into a bunch of tech stuff, but essentially the short version is that sometimes information can be out of date on big websites that take a lot of traffic because of how they handle passing traffic back and forth. If somebody ever wants to hear about it, I can talk in more detail, but don't want to bore people on this call with it.
Well, I'm gonna eat another Thin Mint to celebrate because I feel like some big shit's about to go down. So.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of this is also related to the uncertainty around what the Fed's going to do. So once we get some clarity after the Fed meeting, markets will choose a direction, at least in the short term.
So there's been stuff out about the big banks and their selling or trading or whatever their Russian debt market, even though it's supposed to not be happening. How much of that is because they want to, and how much of that is because they need to, even though they're not supposed to be, but they just have to?
Sorry, I missed that.
It's hard to really say for sure. I imagine there's a mixture of both, right? They're probably, due to sanctions, they're probably being told they need to get rid of those positions, but they also probably need to as well. So, like, if they're not short the position, right? But I would imagine they're needing to get out of those positions, whether they're being told they need to, or they're needing to for liquidity purposes or to keep their doors open or whatever.
But isn't it interesting that they closed them markets? But okay, but you can go ahead because of who you are.
Well, I mean, Russian markets are different than our markets, and our markets are all kinds of messed up as well. But I mean, a lot of these markets are really messed up. So I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's privileges for people that have a lot of money currently to take priorities and whatnot. Oh shoot, he got dropped down. I'm assuming that was accidental. We'll see. We lost a few people.
Oh, I've seen a bunch of people get dropped down, not from us today. Like they just keep dropping and popping back up. So
yes, it was not me.
Yeah, I
I think the other
anybody
interesting
did.
thing with the Russian markets is that they're using the Chinese banks to do it.
Yeah, there's some definite the term fuckery. Globally, there's some big time fuckery going on. And I think part of the executive orders that came out from the Trump admin to limit trading in securities and ADRs and whatnot, because they were using a lot of Chinese companies are accepting a lot of overseas investors in, and then they're funneling that money into their military, and then you see the stocks just not performing because the CCP comes in on the backside of, say, like NEO, says, we're going to give you $1 billion so you can keep doing what you want to do. If the government is supporting a company to make it not fail, that is a bad sign that the company is not healthy to begin with. So it's this big shot of globalism that got spread around for the past 10 years really messed a lot of things up, because you can't have a free fair market based on capitalism and trading with communism. It's fundamentally like oil and water. It just doesn't work. So I don't know why they even attempted to do this anyways.
Then you add to that they're hiring bankers that basically are criminals to be, well, it wasn't, we hired these people and they did this, we didn't.
Well, when you're a communist country, you can set the value of your currency and your businesses and your economy to whatever you want. There's nobody to tell you no. With capitalism, you have the supply and demand curve, which is going to tell you what value is what, or should anyways, based on what people want to buy and what people produce. But China's just like, we'll just make what we want. And especially with NEO, which sucks because NEO's cars look pretty good, actually, to me. But when the government comes in and says, we'll give you $1 billion to not fail, how do you compete with that in a free market where you have, basically other car makers in America trying to compete globally? How do you keep up with that? And Tesla has managed to do it somehow, more or less, probably based on the back of the carbon credits they got. But
yeah, but I'm talking about the banks now putting out articles that they're having issues with hiring staff, so they're basically allowing themselves now to not ask about convicts in their hiring process.
Is any legitimate banker or broker trader gonna go work for a company they know is probably fraudulent right now and ruin their career? Because in 2008, what did somebody say? They will not hire any. This was a while ago. This was like 3 months ago. Other firms were saying they refuse to hire anybody let go from Citadel. Do you guys remember that? Let me find the article on it.
Yeah, but now they're going to open themselves up to ex-banking criminals, people that were prosecuted, and they're not even, it's a no, don't ask, don't tell in the application process to get hired, and then so they can do whatever they need to do and just let the person who couldn't get a job in the first place make a little bit of money and then blame them later or fire them. Meanwhile, they got to do what they wanted to do.
Okay, here it is. This was a while ago, and it was on our radar for a while. This was November 18th, 2021. And I'm going to say this wrong probably. Oh, damn it. Hold on. Hedge fund Balyasny. God, I'm not going to say it right, you guys. Balyasny bans hiring from Ken Griffin's Citadel. That was making its rounds on Reddit and Twitter for quite a while. All right, I want to know how to pronounce that properly. But yeah, well, I guess that's the big news for the day. I tried to airplane feed a Thin Mint through my webcam to YouTube and swing trade from Mars. Said Thin Mints to the moon. So hopefully this week, it's only Monday, so it is Monday, I think. Yes. Hopefully we see some corrections based on that Bloomberg terminal news. Because if they're hitting risk limits, they've already got to be past their risk limits. They've got to be way past their. I'm going to watch Margin Call tonight. I'm going to have a drink and watch Margin Call for the 40th time.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
Yeah.
So when do you maybe see margin calls coming?
They're probably already happening. Like Jay Brett said, they've probably been happening, but we're just seeing the slow effects of a slow liquidation instead of a mass liquidation like we did in 2008. That's the thing. I think Gary Gensler and the DOJ is like, we probably ought to just deflate this slow, which is why the news isn't really posting articles about it. Because the sell-off in all the major stocks is noticeable at this point. People's 401ks look like garbage right now. All the gains that they had from the bull market are gone.
Is it just me, or are other people having problems hearing Spence cut in and out?
And you too, actually, just now.
We're probably getting shorted.
Uh-oh. Twitter doesn't like what I'm
the
saying.
calls get shorted, probably.
I see people getting dropped too. Honestly, yeah. I don't know what else to talk about. I mean, we covered a lot of stuff really quick, and it was really, really good and informative. The Bloomberg news has got me jacked.
I'd like to see after all this for them to have like a Megan's Law type legal rules for criminal bankers where they get on a list. They can't get a job in finance businesses whatsoever.
Jay Brett, who's your bet on the first bank to go insolvent?
Ooh, that's a tough call.
I know, right?
I want to say Bank of America.
I was going to say that too. Bank of America for sure.
What I was going to say too. I hate Bank of America.
I think Dush or Credit Suisse.
Those are also good points.
I think Credit Suisse goes without saying, right? I mean, I skip right over them. They're done. They're going to be done. And I think Bank of America is right behind them.
The European market's like in worse shape than ours as far as their retirement funds and stuff.
I think you're going to see Melvin Capital as the fall guy for all of this. I think they're going to try to blame it all on Melvin for their GME short. And then their fund blowing up. Those trades that he's made long in the past couple months had to be intentional. There's no way.
They've been such garbage.
I just want to see the headline, douche bank goes under.
I want to see the headline, Gabe Plotkin rolls on Ken Griffin, multiple court hearings inbound.
But isn't he like the greatest investor ever?
Well, they're trying to polish
of his
Ken
generation
Griffin up. Generation, yeah.
They're
trying to, lately they've been trying to polish Ken Griffin up to make him look like he's not involved in any of this. And you've got to be a fool to believe that he isn't. He's absolutely involved in all of this. Giving Melvin $2 billion to help them, I'm sorry. You were protecting yourself and your position.
And the liquidity
he's been trying
to get for the last 6 months from wherever he can get it, whether it be China or just investors or pulling money back from Melvin. It's just ridiculous.
We need a law that says when these hedge funds get within their risk tolerance limits, where they're over leveraged by a certain amount, that the Fed should be able to come in and absolutely immediately shut them down and make them cover their positions.
Well, you're 100% right. What about Peabody? Didn't they just receive like a, what was it, $500 million or something, like margin call or whatever, and then Goldman stepped in to bail them out?
Oh, that was the coal. Wasn't that on the coal margin?
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah.
Which one was it? 0.72 that just opened a long FTD or not? Forget what you call them. ETF.
Something just recently happened with 0.72, and I don't know if it was that though. I don't think it was positive.
Yeah, you're cutting out too now. What the? Weird.
I think it was 0.72 or one of them just opened. They just started a long conglomerate to try to bring revenue from new investors.
Yeah, Peabody got a $534 million margin call on coal, and Goldman stepped in with 10% of the loan. But if I'm not mistaken, Goldman is in deep shit with the nickel squeeze right now. Let me double check that.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah, I
they
saw
were
something about
in
that,
on
but
that
I
one.
didn't know the source.
I knew
Oh,
that
wait
they
a second.
had
I
been in the
remember
news for...
0.72. I'm sorry to interrupt. I remember 0.72. They were taking money out of Melvin because it was the two of them. It was right. It was Griffin and Cohen that lent that 2.5 billion, and I think 0.72, if I remember correctly, 2.75, and if I remember correctly, took 595 million of that money back. And I will find the article because I truly remember it from yesterday or the day before.
Oh, they're all so wrapped up into each other. Jeez.
All the scrambling for liquidity all over the board. And
they're just kicking the can down the road from one person. It's just a big global circle jerk right now of a liquidity crunch, and they're just trying to see who's going to be left with the bag. I mean, Mark called this shit fucking months ago. He said almost exactly how it's happening, too.
Hey, you guys, I got it. It is, you serious Bloomberg piece of shit. Billionaire Steve Cohen, 0.72 to redeem $750 million from hedge fund Melvin Capital. Oh, here it is in Reuters. I'll tweet it and pin it to the top.
Good. You're breaking up. The Russians are hacking you.
At this point, are any of us talking clearly to anyone else?
No, I mean everybody, yeah.
Except Jen,
Spence, and PJ. Right. I'm shorting the call, guys. Kidding.
Oh, and there Jen goes. It's literally all four of us are just getting hammered by not being able to make clear messages come across in this call. This is like, you know, a long ways back, I thought, you know, oh well, you know, Twitter is just they're being just like every other big tech company and not doing a good job with their product release. But at this point, I think this is intentional. Like I don't see how it can't be.
That's weird.
Somebody isn't doing something.
Some listeners are DMing me saying that it's clear, that we all sound clear. So I wonder if it's just us up here, you know, speaking that are having the issues.
Yeah, maybe. That also can make sense due to how they distribute.
Going on.
Yeah, because essentially you have a call that has to be negotiated between all of the listeners on a single server, and then from that point, that server that's aggregating all of the discussion has to forward that same packet out to repeaters that can then broadcast to more in order to lower the amount of throughput needed on a single server.
You know, we can always put our closed captions on as speakers, you know, to miss something, but
there's only one thing a communication shutdown means in Vision. It's most likely the Trade Federation.
Yep. I actually think they put ghost speakers in and they just cut us out with ghost speakers.
What, like synthetic speakers?
Yeah, I guess it's been happening to Ape Radio all week.
Well, on that, I don't know how much more I have to cover on anything. If you guys want to talk about something specific, go ahead. If not, I say we probably close the call down for quality purposes.
I was gonna finish up with the thing about that I messaged you about, Spence, where I remembered the stuff about chip shortages and futures. In that, like, Tesla had prepared in advance, and they set contracts for the amount of chips that they were going to need to meet their production goals. So they had contracts in place prior to the pandemic saying, we plan on these amount of cars to be produced and shipped. And, you know, Ford and GM and others hadn't done that because they hadn't anticipated a supply shortage of chips. And so when the pandemic hit and caused and we had our supply chain issues, you know, that's why so many of those vehicles went unfinished, was that the chip shortages were in place. But the big companies like, you know, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft had all arranged far in advance with TSMC and the others to buy at these contract prices, which are usually futures contracts.
Now I want to ask a question about that with the chip shortage and the car makers, all these bigger companies snatching up all the chip manufacturing. What's that going to do to companies like Panasonic that were left out?
I think Panasonic has some of their own facilities, but I don't know what their contracts are. The things is that, like, they may have had contracts in place that they're perfectly okay. I just think we haven't seen news headlines about it because either they're not having as many problems, or they're not nearly as in the spotlight as someone like Tesla is, because they're comparing others within the same sector, right? Because the auto industry was hit hard by chip shortages, whereas, like, all the big cloud manufacturers literally had no disruptions in their supply chains. And I know that because I was there while that was going on, and I was not hearing anything about any supply chain issues on our end because, you know, we had contracts in place long in advance. We've, you know, like I say, they had established contracts long in advance for all the hardware that they purchase, you know, so they do their planning far in advance, and they design their hardware years ahead of time because it takes a long time to go through those cycles of development and rollout. I mean, if you want a perfect example, look at how long it took AWS to launch their Nitro product. While I can't talk about specifics of the development stuff, I know that they were developing it long before they did their initial launch in 2017. Why do I know? Because I worked on that stuff. I talked to people who said that this has been in the works for a long time. So, and you can actually see that behavior based on when they bought Annapurna Labs back in 2015. So, you know, they plan, and Amazon is just an example, right? They plan those mergers and acquisitions, and they.
The fuck is that?
What is that?
Sorry, that's my dog. I was itching his head, and he snores when I do it. I had to do it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, all these things are planned years in advance, and when that part is integral to their thinking, right? Like, their main product is to manage a technology stack, and so their main product is servers. Therefore, they're going to plan those things further in advance. Panasonic is a very big electronics manufacturer, so that's a pivotal part of their manufacturing processes. And TSMC and some of these others are big, like, CPU chip manufacturers, but you have other manufacturers that do their own manufacturing. Like, I believe TI does their own manufacturing, at least to some extent, right? So, and they're huge. Like, I don't think people realize just how big TI is, but, like, beyond the calculators, but they're literally in, I think, basically every device we have. Same with, you know, AMD and Intel and a few other, and ARM. Basically, all of our phones have an ARM chip in them. So, like,
yep, when you add all them buyers for that, then the demand goes up. Somebody's going to be left without. and the
that was
cost
the
going up
automakers.
is going to eat up, any profit margins that some of these smaller companies, especially your like appliance manufacturer, I mean, that's going to skyrocket in retail to make up the margin difference.
Yeah, and that's until the supplies, ramp back up, and a lot of those, issues were related to the supply chain bottlenecks, and it takes a while to unwind those. So, and I don't think we've seen those, the pandemic level supply chain issues resolved at this point. We're still having supply chain problems last I knew, which was as of, maybe like a month ago. So I would say, yeah, we still haven't even seen an unwinding of the previous supply side problems we were having because China still has their zero tolerance policy on COVID. And so the ports will shut down if one person, gets, if somebody gets, or if too many people, like if one person gets exposed. And they've actually moved a lot of people to individual housing at these ports and separating them so that they don't, contract COVID. It's there was a report I was watching on that not too long ago, which was just it was nuts to hear, but it also kind of makes sense if you want to keep operating like that. If they can, keep people far enough apart from each other or cordoned off from the rest of the world, so that they can continue to operate. That's what China thinks is in their best interest, then they'll do something like that. And whether or not it strips you of, your the liberties they have given you, versus the freedoms that you have, right? They don't have those freedoms, but they have been given that liberty by the government up until that point to live where they want. And this is just a thing that is seen as for the betterment of their economy. So yeah, we'll continue to see those unwind, and also as TSMC and others are building new facilities, and there's a lot of interest from a lot of the chip makers to start building facilities here in the States, not just because of the issues with China, but just that we realize the fragility of the supply chain in the chip manufacturing sector, and realize that we can't just have it all be handled at TSMC in Taiwan, or at other, or in China through Foxconn. Like we
Jay,
need. Mm-hmm.
Check this out. So we're in market crash scenario, right? Intel's down a little bit, sitting around $44. Market crashes, and then for some reason China decides to mess around with Taiwan. So now there's a real problem with chips. Intel, if they are going to build that $20 billion facility, that would be quite the investment to buy in on. If Intel gets, like, say it crashes and Intel drops like back to like $20 or whatever, if they do have plans to build that facility in Ohio, they could become one of the bigger chip manufacturers.
Most of the technology that I've seen come out of Intel in the last 2 decades has really been lackluster, in my opinion. Like,
yeah, that's true.
They've really only done enough to stay ahead of AMD up until they got their asses kicked with Ryzen and the Zen platform. Ryzen and EPYC have just been destroying their world, and like, we're starting to see them finally making chips that are at the competitive level. But like, when I start to think back of all of the technologies that I like in a CPU, that on the x86 platform, i.e. the Intel 8086 family, AMD and Intel both produce on the x86, design, and the big technology advances, in my opinion, have come from AMD on every one of them. Because who was it that patented 64-bit processors? AMD. They were the first to market with it. They were the first with the patent. In fact, the patent is licensed by Intel. Now, I think part of that was,
due to their financial situations. But that's a deeper discussion for the market dynamics of AMD and Intel. They're effectively a duopoly. And if Intel were the only to exist, they'd become a monopoly and then would be under massive regulatory scrutiny. And so the theory that I've heard around water coolers over the years is that Intel kept AMD afloat and bought up their technology a number of years back, or bought up licensing for technology to help keep AMD afloat. But
you know it's bad when NVIDIA is down as much as it is when there's a chip shortage.
So NVIDIA, don't get me started on those fuckers. I fucking hate them with a passion. And I have hated them since probably about 2008. They don't give a shit about their customers. And that bothers the fuck out of me. They couldn't care less about their customers. They will take every opportunity they can to price gouge and to force you into what they want you to do.
Well, they sure did price gouge.
They are the most predatory tech company I have seen. Period. Hard stop.
So you're saying they're the 2008 housing market of technology?
No, not really. They're not. They couldn't cause any kind of a crash. The thing with NVIDIA is that they're doing what they can to effectively stay ahead of AMD, just like Intel was doing. And I will openly admit I really like AMD overall. I've loved them because they've always been an underdog. And I've liked the way that they have embraced their their fan base. It's kind of they had a very similar situation to Tesla. In fact, that's where I lost a lot of money a little over a decade ago. I went hard. I think at the time hard for me was $6,000. I went really hard into AMD. That was my big day trade that I was going to try and do, and it got shorted to oblivion after the bulldozer pile driver series, because there were a series of class action lawsuits and all this stuff about false advertising, and it drove the price down under $2, and they were in danger of being delisted. And then a few years ago when Ryzen launched, all the shorts got squeezed out, and that's why you saw AMD jump from I think it was at $10 a share when I started paying attention again, because it was back up above where I had initially invested and had then sold out at $2 a share, and jumped 100 in under a year.
What I meant by the 2008, I meant the 2008 banker that would sell an upside down mortgage just to make a quick profit.
Yeah. Hey, let's go to Yasar real quick. What's up, man?
Hey, Spence, how you doing?
Good. How are you, dude?
Good. Hey, your last tweet that you put out about all those rules about the SEC talking to whomever.
Oh, you know what man, I'll have to look at my tweets. I don't even remember what I had for breakfast.
It's the one that everybody's tweeting about how
the margin call one.
Okay, I guess that's what I was going to ask you. Is that a long-winded way to say margin calls are to prepare for margin calls?
Are you talking about?
Well, they were flat out saying that you need to collect margin in that announcement today. So they were reminding broker dealers and others that hey, if somebody has a short position, you need to be highly vigilant about collecting your margin and assessing their risks, etc.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't really understand the market mechanics too much, so I just thought I'd ask for an explanation. Now, my other question is, let's say I'm a hedge fund. We'll just call it Yasser's hedge fund. And Spence is the person that I borrowed the shares from. And I go, hey, Spence, can I have 100,000 shares of AMC, please, at $10? And Spence is like, yeah, man, take them. Now, if me as a hedge fund, I'm at risk if I go broke, Spence doesn't get paid. As I understand it, the hedge funds are in deep shit. What could be preventing the people who lent out the shares to go, maybe we should start recalling our shares?
Yeah, the share recall on the Lind is very interesting, and I don't know that we know the answer to that. I don't think anybody knows because ultimately, if a broker dealer is lending out their shares to somebody to short, or you have share lending turned on and they're lending your shares to somebody because you've got a margin account or whatever, right? Then at the end of the day, it's up to that individual who let or broker dealer or entity who lent those shares out to do a recall and to do that assessment. And that's part of the message that was being stated by the SEC today. It was like that was one of the things to look at. Yeah, if you look at the Nest area up top and you go back one announcement to mine, it was like, okay, during the Spaces call, there's a link to the SEC post that people have been talking about in terms of the Bloomberg terminals that talks about all this guidance that was given out today.
All right, sweet. I'll look it up. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
My understanding of that too is if you're all right, you're an SDIC, I think that's what they call a stock derivative investment bank, who got pump money from the feds in a repo.
Okay.
And then you use that money to give to hedge funds at a loan rate.
Yeah.
Right? And then they kept bumping you more money, and now 80% of the money that the Fed gave you, you pumped in short sellers.
Yeah.
That 80% that you have to pay back, you can't get back from them hedge funds. So how do you pay the Fed back? Well, you can't pay the Fed back, which is why the Fed's hesitating on tightening up. All right.
Gotcha.
So the Fed's giving them time. And they said, all right, you got time. Fix this shit before you fucking crash the whole thing.
Well,
but the hedge funds can't get out of their position to make any money back because they're going to go back up. They're going to run the banks down, which in turn is going to run the feds down. And then they're going to have to print more money to pay when they finally do. Like, I think that whole article was them saying, look, you've had a year and you're running out of time. So whatever you need to do, you need to do now because...
Okay, that makes sense, actually. Yeah,
well, that's why they did the January 28th thing. And Mark even said, it sounds like these hedge funds went to the Fed and the SEC and said, hey, we kind of got a problem here. Let us unwind it. And okay, just don't do it again. And then instead of unwinding it, they doubled down. And this Bloomberg terminal message and everything being put out now by the SEC, it sounds like it's already too late. Because the SEC is late doing everything. It sounds like they're saying, close it out, you fucked up, let's see where we land. So
yeah, because I mean,
what pisses me off is the DTCC was complicit in the whole thing, and they're the ones that are supposed to be keeping that from happening.
The thing is, at the end of the day, like, I mean, us as apes, yes, we'd like to see a market change. Now, me personally, after I'm done, I'm not investing again. The markets are shit. I'll probably wait a couple of years and do a little bit more learning before I ever put another penny in. But I sit in a position where I have so many shares, I'll probably never have to invest again in my life. Now, but like us as apes, yes, we want to see change. And then there's like the cats of the world that are, really trying to bring it to light, and the Marks and the Spencers and the whomevers, they're really trying to make a proper systematic change and bring it to light. Now, it's great what you guys are doing, and it's great that you guys are bringing all this shit to light to teach to people like me that are completely oblivious to it. But at the end of the day, man, everybody has a price. Anybody can be corrupted. Anybody. Hell, I could be corrupted. I mean, I'm not ever going to be in a position where somebody be like, oh yeah, we'll give you X amount. I'm a nobody. Nobody's ever going to want to corrupt me. Even Gary Gensler, man, I had so much faith in that guy. And then articles, or I guess the apes that are doing the DD, started showing about how much money he makes on a government salary versus how much he's worth. And I'm going, Yeah, this guy's probably bought off.
You can't make that much money off of those sources and not have a conflict of interest.
Exactly.
But that's the problem.
Exactly what I'm trying to say.
The problem with these guys is they get a taste of it and then they get used to it and then it gets normalized. Just like in 2008, everybody was taking cookies out of the cookie jar, so it became normalized. 100%. Then it was a problem.
Well, like, I mean, think about it, right? Like, and again, don't like start shooting me down. I'm just gonna throw a random number out there. AMC hits 10 grand, and if somebody has 1,000 shares, they're making bank. Now, a person who just made $1 million that is only used to making $50,000 a year, I mean, now they have a taste of $1 million life. Anything below that is not going to be enough for them.
Yeah.
Now they're always going to want $1 million lifestyle. So then what do? You try and chase it and chase it and chase it. Now, some of us apes are going to be able to replicate it over and over and over again. Some apes are going to blow it on hookers and blow and be at the exact same spot or worse a year later. Whereas, you know, the Gary Gensler assholes of the world, they have this wicked steady job. They're protected in every freaking fashion you can think of. And the people that they're supposed to be protecting us from are going, hey, listen, man, I'll just give you a bunch of money. Why don't you just look the other way? And I'm going to keep the money coming.
I'll say this. I think Gary Gensler is the best SEC commissioner I've seen, but that doesn't say anything when all the SEC commissioners have fucking sucked. It's easy to be the smartest kid in the room if you're the only one there.
Yeah.
And I want to comment too on what Yasser was saying about like investing in the stock market after. If we get to that point where I have, like, I'm comfortable living the way I'm living now, I don't need that $1 million lifestyle or whatever. I can make that work. But that said, I still think there's something to be said for investing in small business within your own communities that can do more for what the ape movement's supposed to be representing than the big markets.
I'm building an Iron Man suit.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, I was in a space call a while ago, and I like to hop from space call to space call because I like to ask the same question and get multiple answers so that I can, you know, put together what Spence said and what this person said and that person said. And then I hop on Google and then I do my own, I put my puzzle together on my own rather than just following one person's thing. And I mean, me personally, I've done well in life and I own a lot of property. And somebody like whoever was just saying, you know, I invest in small businesses. And along those lines, I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy more houses and then I'm going to rent them out. And then that way I will have a residual income forever. And one lady lost her fucking shit on me. She was like, oh, you're just like every other,
you're taking advantage of people.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not what I'm doing. That's how I built my business.
All right, first off, I'm going to defend you on that because if you're investing in retail, you're investing in a way that you're not carrying debt on the retail that you have. Therefore, you don't need to spike up the rent to pay the mortgage. And you can create affordable housing for people that otherwise wouldn't be able to find any within your community.
Yeah, I mean, I owned 10 houses before AMC started. I sold 2 of them and dumped everything into AMC. I have 8 houses and I've had most of them for about 6+ years. I've never raised rent, ever. Because my thing is, as long as I break even, I'm good.
Once you're stable in your house loan.
Exactly.
I rent my house in Michigan and I rent it probably 30 to 40% under what I could be renting it because I know someone in that area needed a place to live who's a good tenant. Now, I still make money because I was responsible and got my mortgage issued correctly. So it's mutually beneficial. And somebody tried to tell me what they told you. Well, you're just taking advantage of them. I said, show me a house on the river, a 2-bed, 2-bath family house on the river with a garage paved that you can get for $800 a month in Gladwin. And they just shut up. I was like, yeah, you're going to be paying $1,400 a month. So you can.
There's always going to be people that point fingers, unfortunately. There's really no getting around that.
Hey, so Yasser, I want to just piggyback on what you said about never investing in the stock market again. So, of course, if you have all those houses, you probably won't have to. But no matter how screwed up it is, let's never forget that it is a huge vehicle of wealth in this country. And we're going to probably have quite a bit of money when this is all over. And I may not swing trade or day trade or, mess around with options, but I will dump it all into some really good blue chips and just chill out then at that point. But I think it's important that we never stop advocating for a transparent marketplace.
This call has been shorted.
Yeah, I agree with you, Pete.
Right.
That's what we're all here for. And I'll tell you guys what, after MOAS, I'm moving my damn tendies to the blockchain. Because I'm sick of this shit here. I'm sick of it. So I am, and this is a promise.
Yeah.
I'm moving my tendies to the blockchain.
I'll be investing in BSTX listed companies just to see how it's working and to learn the system, but I will not buy any legacy stocks on the legacy exchange after this. I won't do it.
Spence, this call is getting shorted so hard.
It totally is.
I moved most of my money over to the blockchain already. It's already in stable coins in Ethereum. So, I have just enough really for like a year or more of trying to build my business in my bank account, or roughly therein, and then the rest is all in blockchain, and I'm buying into my position in Ethereum over there, while also borrowing Ethereum against my collateral so that I can run my business. So I'm not short selling that Ethereum, by the way. I'm putting it into a validator. So I'm like legitimately using a loan for a legitimate reason in DeFi, which is something that most people have not been doing yet.
Hey, Darth Bolt.
Oh, man, I hope I don't get shorted here, guys.
Yeah, go ahead, bud.
All right, so I think ultimately the issue with the DTC, DTCC comes back to not necessarily complacency, but ignorance. They're not a government organization, and they have outsourced reporting and recording to yet another not government agency. However, all of these are overseen by the SEC. When you have the DTC, who is a register, they're outsourcing reporting and recording to a transfer agent. That transfer agent is then reporting to the DTCC. This transfer agent is also affiliated with Citadel. So how much is the accuracy of what's being reported to the DTCC?
Yeah, that was
and
my
again,
point. You can't have inside people doing their own reporting and their own compliance.
Right. So, I look at the DTC and the DTCC as two ignorant parties because they have taken absolutely no initiative in assuring that first of all, the company that they have outsourced to is a legitimate company without bias and without conflict of interest. That's not the case because they are directly affiliated with Citadel. Therefore, they're being ignorant because they have no clue what's going on, literally no clue what's going on. Whatever they're handed is, okay, here's the numbers. The complacency comes in with the SEC not stepping up their game and monitoring these two organizations, as well as the transfer agent that they've outsourced this documentation, reporting, and recording to.
But how much government control do you want over that? I mean, how much do you hand it?
I just want the police to do their job.
Right. They should do their job. And, and we've been questioning over and over again, why the fuck aren't they doing their job?
If they could or did do their job, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. That's for sure.
I mean, if you remember what Gensler said in his interview with Jon Stewart on, the problem with Jon Stewart, he said that they don't have criminal enforcement. They only have civil enforcement. So, if you're familiar with law, then you understand that there's two different types of law. There's civil law and then there's criminal law.
and the SEC is only able to enact within the civil law level, which is part of the reason why their hands are tied behind their backs, is because they don't have criminal enforcement. So, the fact
but
that
they're not even like, civilly, handling things. They're not even doing their job,
I mean, they don't have the resources.
They don't have
I mean,
access
get the
to
resources.
information.
That's an excuse. That's an
I mean,
excuse.
For information they don't have to get the information they need to do anything.
I mean, they can barely pay and hire the lawyers
what's
that
up.
they have. They're severely understaffed for the system that they're trying to regulate. Like, they're just always at a disadvantage, and it won't be fixed until Congress gives them more budget, and or rather the
budget
administration
or more authority.
Yeah, the administration actually is the one who puts forth the budget, right? So technically, it's Biden's responsibility to, in the budget, allocate enough money for the SEC to operate. And that also goes back as well to previous administration. It's up because Gary Gensler quoted that they shrunk by 5% in the previous administration. So it's up to the people that are building the budget that needs to be approved by Congress. And so therefore it is a combination of efforts in the House, the Senate, and the White House. And if they're not all working in lockstep together to create the correct resourcing, and they keep funneling it off into stupid shit like they have done continuously in the last decade, then we will never fix that problem. So,
and they don't want to interrupt their gravy train either.
Exactly. I mean, we all saw how incredibly hard all of the politicians were initially fighting back against the stock trade ban. I mean, Pelosi was one of the biggest ones, and Pelosi's like the number 3 earner of all of Congress for trading. I mean, fuck, she's got somebody has a Twitter profile that literally just tracks her every trade.
Yeah, they had to go to Truth Social because Twitter shut them down. Nancy Pelosi's stock tracker is on Truth, you guys, if you're on there.
They had shut it down, but they opened another one up with a different name, and that one was there last I saw within the last few days.
So has anybody heard this, that Deutsche Bank is under investigation by the DOJ for laundering $10 billion worth of funds from Russia? Has anybody seen anything about that?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier.
I must have missed it.
Liquidating Russian funds, debt, and selling them off. And I think it's more on a need, not on a want, because they're not even supposed to be open markets right now.
I think we are incredibly close to the point where the reason they set up the share loan program with the DTCC, I think we're about to see the reason why, because so much has already been liquidated and no short positions have really been closed that now it's a catastrophe waiting to happen. I'm wondering if we're getting ready to see forced recalls, because why would they set up the DTCC loan program for cash to close if they weren't going to use it? I think they just said liquidate as much as you can until you hit your risk thresholds, which now they just came out. The SEC just said that. And I think once they've reported their risk threshold, they're just going to be like, you have to close. That way they don't totally crash out the entire economy and the stock market, because the DTCC will hold the shares. Retail will get paid because of the closed shorts. And then everybody reinvests back in the bottom of the market and it goes back up. I don't know. It all just seems well timed.
Hey, Diamond Hands, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, 2 things, guys. First, I'm never updating my Twitter, so I can still have my 100%. Second thing is, I want to bring our conversation back to supply chain. And a lot of this goes to corporate greed. So I don't know if a lot of you guys realize this, but for an American company, especially manufacturing company, to go to China, they need to partner up with a local company, right? And everything that is made there, they have an agreement that they will supply China before they supply everywhere else. So there's a lot of supply shortage right now because China is like, yeah, you know what? We're having all blackouts and stuff. We're not making enough stuff. We're going to supply China first before we ship it out. And that's why we're having supply chain issues. And the root of it is corporate greed. And it's freaking disgusting.
I had somebody, and I kind of looked into it a little bit, that worked in shipyards, and they said that they're sitting on empty shipping containers here in the States because the boats are so full they can't send the empty containers back to China to be loaded to ship out.
It's many-fold, and that's part of it. And, you know, when they make stuff, like we don't talk about a rolling blackout, you know, because they have energy issues in China. They don't make enough stuff there. But whatever they make, they will supply China before they supply America. And that's just disgusting. Rant over.
It's crazy how many different subjects we hit, and it all comes down to the same situation and how vast and diverse it hits. Oh, man. My dog just banged his head on my table really hard. Such a goofball. I have to get... Oh, actually, Mark just popped in the room. Yep. Mark, what's your opinion on everything?
We gotta have Mark come up as a speaker, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, he's still here.
Yep, he's listening.
I just invited him to.
Yeah, I saw the crow. I see the crow.
It's got such a scary
crow boss.
The one. So it's
crow
like,
boss is it?
You know.
Oh man.
Hey Mark,
what's happening, gang?
Hey Mark.
Hello.
Hello, Mark.
Well, we're watching a slow descent into hell. You know.
Is the world on fire?
Markets are broken. Markets are broken.
Yep.
This is what everyone gets. I mean, it all started with pulling the buy button because Joe Sixpack was winning and the man.
I can't understand a word Mark's saying.
Mark,
on your headphones, Mark.
Same. We're all being shorted on this call. Remember?
Is that better?
Yep, that's better.
So it starts with the buy button getting pulled because Joe Sixpack's winning, and Citadel, Melvin, counterparties are all getting killed. So they pull the buy button. And then Joe Sixpack and the average guy's winning on nickel. So we just shut down the London Mercantile Exchange, which has been around since 1877. And then we break trades. I mean, it's one thing to shut it down. Then they break the trades, which led to it. Because a Chinese criminal is over-leveraged through J.P. Morgan, and everyone cries foul. And then Barclays is suspending some ETFs. So, you know, at some point, you know, the broken market, the over-leveraged hedge funds, the entitled criminals, it's all there. And it's what I was talking about since February 1 of last year. And the whole thing with the movement is if everyone can get on the same side of the rope and just say there's no part of this that's okay, there's no part of this that's fair, there's no part of these markets that are free, everyone, you know, may be able to move the needle. But again, it's all there. It's been all there. It's been talked about. And they sure would not cut anyone on this call a break if they had a margin issue. They'd blow your ass out of the water. And they, you know, your family's starving, you rob a 7-Eleven for $100, they'd throw you in jail. But you can just blow these markets to bits. So it's just absolutely disgusting what's going on. Entitled hedge funds, the whole bit. So, you know, we talked about these issues on various calls for the past, I don't know, 1 to 5 months. And now they're kind of front and center. Now, granted, no one saw a war coming, and no one saw some of this nonsense, but the tail is wagging the dog, to be sure. So everyone needs to be careful.
I think it's just escalated liquidations.
Yeah.
What's your take on forced liquidations to cover short positions before this gets any worse, before the risk tolerance is just blown out of the water?
Well, I think guys are getting blown out. I mean, I keep tweeting about these Tiger Cubs, Chase Coleman, Co2, D1, all these clowns who are just so over leveraged, and their longs are getting killed. So they have to liquidate their longs, and they're covering shorts at the same time. But the sooner a lot of these guys go out of business, the better off everyone will be, and you can get the market back to working the way it should. But, you're coming close to quarter end, which is March 31st. And, some of these guys are down well north of 40%, which is a lot in a quarter, and they were down last year. So
with no upside in sight either, especially with all the liquidity.
If you're someone like
also
Tiger,
redemptions.
If you're down something like Tiger, if you're down 20% last year, that puts you at 80 cents. And then you're down 40+% this year. That puts you at 48, 46, 48. You have to be up 120% just to get back to even. And the way their fee structure works is they get like a 2 and 20 or a 3 and 30, but it's with a high watermark. These guys aren't going to get paid, bonuses unless they're up 120%. And this does not even include the private companies they own, which are mismarked. So it's a shit show all the way around. But I think a lot of these guys just have to sell their longs and cover shorts, which is what's been going on. So
nice.
Wouldn't it be great if somebody like a Snowden did like a hack and then WikiLeaks?
Well, I mean, it's these guys have to file what they own, and they own one disaster after another. And I mean, it's a mess. You don't like seeing anything like this, because good deals can't go up and bad deals don't go down. It's just they just flush everything down, and it turns into a mess. And people take their cue from the Cartoon Network, which all they do, if you listen to them, is you lose your ass. And you can circle it back to Gasparino and his sidekick Eleanor. I mean, the big news is they should be reporting on these hedge funds, Citadel, and all the over leverage and things like that. Instead, they just keep banging the same stupid drum of
Ripple.
Yeah,
nobody cares about Ripple.
I don't even know what it is. It sounds like an alcoholic drink to me. It's like
Ripple.
Ripple
is a quote unquote cryptocurrency, and I use quote unquote because it's highly suspected or highly believed in the crypto community that they're a security and they're unregulated, and that's the entire basis of that lawsuit that they're entangled with the SEC. And that's also a thing that ties into the crypto community, and what will that mean for all cryptos going forward, and essentially like that would further push BSTX and T0 as the trading platform.
Here's the thing with Ripple though. The thing with Ripple is the SEC can't even manage the legacy stock market. Why are they going to try to go ahead and regulate crypto when they can't do their base job to begin with? That's why T0 and BSTX is great, because it takes away half of the responsibility of the SEC.
Well, it's quickly, if it's not clear where this is all going, you haven't been paying attention.
I have a quick question. Like in The Big Short, all right, all the investors under him basically were trying to get their money out, and he basically froze all their accounts, and then there were all kinds of lawsuits and stuff against him. How many of the 1%ers are going to have lawsuits due to lack of liquidity in order to pull their money from the liquidity that the hedge funds are using, or the lack of liquidity that they have?
What's more important there? Is it What's more important, the funds that are going to face criminal actions or the funds that decide to roll on each other to save their reputation?
Well, that's kind of what I was driving at, is their money is basically from the 1%ers that are going to be losing their money when they start to realize what's really happening with their money. So there's going to be like lawsuits by them, obviously, because they're going to be locked out of their positions or locked out from pulling their positions.
It sounds like the real regulatory body in the stock market is just street law to me, because once things get so bad, it's just a cannibalism of fund versus fund to save reputation, which I still think they are absolutely cannibalizing Melvin as the fall guy.
Hey guys.
Well, I think
Hey, sorry.
Go ahead.
Real quick. I have somebody here that wants to say something. Sorry, she got really excited. She really wanted to say that. Do you want to say it again, Anya? Yeah. Let's fucking go. Yes, I swore in front of my child.
That was cute. I forgot what I just said.
Sorry, she was like she was begging me. And
oh, that's all good.
All right.
Lighten the mood a little bit.
Yeah.
We're getting all fire and brimstone.
I think
go ahead.
I think the trick is everyone has to watch, for these big hedge funds to put up something called gates, which will mean they can't give back money even though they have redemption requests, because they're so tied into the garbage they own. So if some of these famous hedge funds start putting up gates, that means you can't get your money out even if you wanted it.
And Citadel already did in a sort of manner of speaking, didn't they?
Melvin did too.
They restricted. Restricted.
Melvin did, but if it starts to become common practice amongst these Tiger guys, you start reading about it, that's going to make these guys uninvestable, and then people could panic, because what will happen is the institutions who are invested in these guys, knowing full well they can't get their money, will start pulling their money from the good funds where they have liquidity, which will cause the good funds to sell stocks. We talked about this contagion thing. I don't know on whose call about watch Q4 and especially watch Q1, because if you had a shitty 2021, you may have redemptions for Q1, which is still 2 weeks away, but it's a mess.
Basically, you're saying it's basically the equivalent of a bank run, but on hedge funds.
Yeah, I think right now you're starting to see it, and the news. I don't believe the news one way or the other. I don't believe it, the bad news, and I don't believe the good news. But you let the market basically tell you what the news is, because there are people out there who are in the know, who are transacting.
Now, my question is, are you going to see any reports on gatekeeping?
Yeah, I think the media, I just keep tweeting to the mainstream media to wake up and start doing your job rather than reporting on garbage or shit no one cares about. Ground zero. And I said, again, there's numerous podcasts that I did last year, and I said the next scandal, or what could cause the market to go down, is the deleveraging of what I called excessive leverage. And it's exactly what you're seeing right now.
Well, I expect my Pulitzer Prize for my YouTube channel so I can wave it in Gasparino's face for reporting the real news.
Yeah, and I just, and even Gasparino and Eleanor and any of these people, all they have to do is grab a bat and focus on what's going on and look ahead of them, rather than picking on people. Shit, I sure wouldn't make fun of the apes, given that these billionaire hedge fund guys are gonna invest themselves out of business.
I think the collapse of big hedge funds this time is going to last, and it'll help bring stability to the market in the future.
That's a big part of the DOJ's doing right now, is getting rid of the nefarious reports and reporters.
Well, too much consolidated money in these big hedge funds causes massive conflicts of interest and too much unbalance of power in the markets. Citadel's a monopoly on the market. It's just wild what they can do.
Well, I think and thoroughly believe that Citadel is Bank of America's largest customer. And Citadel in this environment, in my mind, given what business they're in, is probably getting absolutely destroyed because they are so highly leveraged and all these guys are hugely long and skewed long, and they're all in the same damn names.
It's fucking disgusting, if you ask me. It's all fucking disgusting.
First thing we should do.
Bucks.
First thing we should do when Citadel takes a dump is we should all band together and buy that Constitution back.
Hell yeah.
I saw something, Mark, and I want your validation on it. Are the stock derivative insured banks backed by China banking?
I mean, which banks?
The ones that have the stock derivative insurance or SDI, I don't know.
No, I mean, I think we're not there yet where brokerage firms have issue. I'm not that's not the issue. The issue to me is there's so much cross fuckery going on between hedge funds, prime brokers, their counterparties, how shit's been going on, that all this stuff needs to get unwound for good. That they need to drag some of these guys out and fail them once and for all and not watch Citadel and SAC bail out Melvin. They just need to fail, close their doors, go home, never to be heard from again, and basically try to deleverage the system. Because if they deleverage the system, stocks will go down, and then you'll be able to buy good companies cheap. Sometimes you got to burn down a forest to create new growth. And some of these guys who are so leveraged and leverage on top of leverage and use free money to mark and push up their positions so they could get 2% of the assets and 20% of the profits. And they basically became multi-billionaires basically on the back of market manipulation. And that's basically what it is. I mean, Ken Griffin's a smart guy, but he's not $60 billion smart.
No, but all that's funded by the global bank system. So
yeah, he basically got it through free money after the system almost collapsed, where no one went to jail and everyone was bailed out. And the people with the money were able to borrow at no interest rates and push stocks up. And again, I don't have as much a problem with that because it's legal and all. Right? Where I begin to have a huge problem is when these guys start pushing around the little guy, and when the little guy wins, they rig the game to screw the little guy so they keep going and pull the same shit. That's when I get motivated. That's what got me on this issue. And then the lazy ass mainstream media doesn't report things properly with what really went on.
Well, the mainstream media? Who owns the mainstream media?
The guys with the money.
There's your answer, right?
Yeah, I mean, so a hard break where the billionaires really catch it and are exposed for what they are. Really near and longer term is a good thing for the average person. It really is. It redistributes their wealth, or they burn up their wealth, and they're exposed not being anywhere nearly as smart as everyone would lead them to be. So I don't know. It's never dull. It's always something. It's always something. It's always something.
It's too bad, but yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, the thing that's really too fucking bad, and again, if some people get pissed off because I get in Adam Aaron's grill, I don't really care, but man, did he really blow it. He really fucking blew it. He really had an opportunity to do something great, something different, something to at least expose some of the fuckery. But he just screwed it up.
Well, maybe he does have plans, to do a NFT dividend or SEO dividend still. I mean, we don't know.
But he
but
could
right,
have
I get what you're saying, Mark.
he could have the time his window to pull it off was right there. I mean, he could pull it off here, but it's just
I think he's still a good CEO, but yeah, I think he did kind of blow that oops, but there's still a chance for him to come back around and say, hey, let's do this, let's pay off our debts or debt, that's restricting us here, and let's do this NFT dividend, let's do the SEO dividend, let's do it.
I'm not even sure that's going to matter anymore at this point, because if these dudes get liquidated any further, they're going to have to cover their shorts. I mean, they're going to have to. It's
it's not dull. It's not dull.
I think it's going to be a really interesting 2 weeks in the market for sure.
Gordolphin, what you got?
Sorry, Spence, it's cutting in and out. Can you guys hear me?
I can, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Spence, I've updated my cover photo after the comment you left me last time. And then, Mark, I have more dumb questions. So my first dumb question, Mark, is I saw Stevie Cohen set forth a press release that he wants to pull out $750 million from Melvin Capital. And I just wondered if you could walk through the mechanics of how that's done, because obviously he doesn't have that liquidity in cash, I'm assuming. And if he is levered, this would take a lot of time to go ahead and unwind. So because you have run your own fund, if someone comes to you with a call like this and a redemption request, what are the mechanics of that? And how does that impact other investors also in the fund as well?
It's a really good question.
Well, he simply, he gave him the redemption request, which is the 750, which is essentially what he put in to bail him out. And he used to work for the guy. And Stevie used to say he was like his smartest guy. So there's a guy who used to work for me, Russell Line. He now works at Park West. The guy's smart as fuck. And if I gave Russell $700 million, first of all, I don't have $700 million, but if I invested with him when he was in a jam, and the guy made me a lot of money over the years, the last thing I would do if the guy was sideways is publicly pull my money after 1 year, right? I mean, that's like makes me look like a clown show, and it makes Cohn look like a clown show, because if you're going to give the guy $750 million when he's in trouble, the fact that he's doing shit this year is not a surprise to me. But you just sort of ride or die with your guy. So you just say, fine, my 750's here. I gave it to you. I believe in you. You're still doing shitty. Well, I still believe in you. I'm not going to give you any more. But
unless things are so dire that they needed their money back.
Yeah. I mean, there's no good motive that he's pulling the 750 he gave him a year ago. It makes everyone look really stupid. And then it gets back to my original theory of why did you give him the 750 in the first place? And why did Citadel give him the money? And Citadel's getting their money back. And the simple answer is that Melvin represented systematic risk. If Melvin would have failed at the time, they would have taken those names he was short and taken them through the roof. But instead, they gave him the money, bailed him out, pulled the buy button, screwed Joe Sixpack. And a year later, we want our money back from Melvin because he's an asshat. His performance is shitty. And a year later, we'll watch him go out of business when he should have gone out of business last year. And in the meantime, he broke the markets. He screwed Joe Sixpack. He exposed Robinhood. Everyone's lost. So my deal would be, why not go out of business a year ago to spare everyone the grief, because SAC's lost on their investment, Citadel's lost on their investment, Robinhood's been exposed for the clowns they are, Joe Sixpack was screwed because they pulled the buy button. Markets, they broke the markets, and a sign of the broken markets is exactly what's happening now. Everyone's been screwed, everyone, by allowing that shit show Melvin and that irresponsible Plotkin to keep on going. I mean, that's the irony of the whole thing. Who's better in what the fuck day is today? March 15th-ish? Who's better?
14th.
Who's better March 15th, 2022, having gone 14 months through this bailout shit show than they were back then? Everyone would have been better off just to watch everyone go out of business last year.
Beware the Ides of March.
Beware of the fuckery that goes on when adults aren't doing serious things about it. And therein lies the problem. You had Archegos. That fuck is still a free man. However you say his name, HWANG. Nothing's happened to Melvin, although he'll fail shortly. SAC is still a clown show. Citadel still does their thing. Ken Griffin's pocketed another $10 billion. Joe Sixpack's been screwed.
Better now than they were.
You know, Ken Griffin is, but you know, everyone on the call wishes that AMC had prices prior to January of 2020. I mean, it's just a mess. It's just an absolute fucking mess.
Mark, can I say something? It's so fucking good to hear your voice. We miss you around when you are, sometimes I know you're a busy person and you got a lot of things going on, but it's just good to hear your voice and just good to hear a good Mark. Every time I see that crow, I'm like, man, there's Crow Boss. So it's good to hear from you, man. I'm really glad I'm in this call and didn't miss it.
Well,
And
I had a break in the action. I got a lot of good stuff going on. It's just hectic. That's all.
One thing I can promise you, after all this bullshit is done and all this, there'll be a lot of people moving to blockchain because people are sick and tired of this shit. Every day, over and over, these little guys get messed up and nobody doing nothing to protect them other than filling up their own fucking pockets.
You can't hide an illegal order when it's registered on blockchain ledger. So over leveraging at the way they have in this legacy market is going to be a big problem for them, because when they start seeing floats being exceeded, they'll just say, hey, we see what you're doing. Stop it.
So let me actually talk about that real quick. That is already a solved problem in crypto. The process of going through DeFi and DeFi loans, you already have algorithmic, like completely automated systems that are coming in and they're liquidating you when you drop below the required LTV. And the LTV, when they require you to put up collateral, like you're putting your like US dollars, and you can't pull out more than what you have put in terms of value. So when your LTV drops to like whatever the threshold is, they liquidate you. Like bots will come in and liquidate and take those arbitrage opportunities to come and get certain discounts that have been offered. And this is controlled through decentralized governance. Like, and the model's out there, and you can take that and literally lift and shift right into T0's model, and you have a perfect system already that doesn't have these like, oh, well, I'm just gonna, not know that they've got loans at 5 different places. This is all there. You can see that they have to have the proper collateralization. So yeah, blockchain is going to change it dramatically.
Well, today at T0 is Goon's first day. This is his first official day And whether you believe it or don't believe it, or whatever that clown Lauer and all those other goofballs have to say, if you think the system as it currently is fine, then knock yourselves out, right? Then no worries.
Well,
But if
quick
you
question.
think
I want to know
if you think the current system is broken, needs improvement, consists of fuckery, the whole thing, then blockchain at least is an answer and or the next step and or can change the way things are done.
Well,
It's the same. It's the same thing in politics. If I ever ran for office, I would simply say, if you like the job Joe Biden is doing, by all means vote for him. Right? If you think he's doing well, vote for him. If
what
you
are the
think if
what
you
are the
think
differences and similarities between the 2008 liquidity crisis and what's going on now?
Well, 2008 was bank and finance, special financial products, subprime, shit like that driven. It was all driven from financial greed, excess, shitty loans, that kind of thing. And this to me is driven, one, by macro, which is kind of COVID and inflation from COVID. Two, this latest Russian-Ukrainian dust-up. Three, over-leveraged market players all hitting at once, creating a Cat 5 hurricane. This is really a three-headed monster. It's, you can say for a Fed that fell asleep at the switch. So 2008 was a one-trick financial crisis driven by excesses through brokerage, mortgages, lending, and things like that. And this is more of a four-headed monster. That's all rolled into one.
So you would say it's like tenfold worse than 2008?
No, not necessarily, because there's ways to fix it, right? There's fixes here. The fix is, yeah, there's an inflation problem. We all know that. But it's really driven by the government paying people not to work and not to produce. Which started in, I don't know, whenever whenever COVID came out. The government incented people not to work. They paid you to stay at home. Now, they paid you to stay at home so you didn't get sick or others didn't get sick. But if you're not at work producing or doing what you're supposed to do, there's going to be built-in shortages. And when there's built-in shortages, when people go back to work, it takes a while to roll through. Then all of a sudden they kept rates low, too long. And then people use too low rates to speculate on crazy shit. Then, lo and behold, we have, the dust up in Russia. Then we have hedge fund underperformance and leverage. And finally, we have the government raising rates because they were so backdoor sleeping at the switch. There's fixes for all this stuff. I mean, in general, people's balance sheet is better. People have more money than they used to have. Things aren't that bad. But they can get bad if people start losing their minds at the rate they're losing it. So, we'll see. We'll see. But, I'm just...
Do we really have money, though, with the inflation out of control?
Well, I guess it depends what side of the shotgun you are. The people who are less well off than the well off, it's a huge tax increase on those people. Price of gas is a huge tax increase, and it's regressive. It's the working guy who has to drive to work, or God forbid you're in the business where you use fuel. It's not good. But if you have a lot of money and you live in a major city, it's, you basically sort of say you look the other way and it's someone else's problem. And it's very fucked up because it's been fucked up for so long that no one's had to do any real figuring out. But I'm not as negative as some are or could be, because I think that if you can get these hedge fund guys out of business, and again, I'm not preaching violence, but if there's enough money in the world where this Putin has screwed you up, you can get a mighty big number together to blow the guy's head off, and that would solve a lot of problems. Then you'll get to rebuild the Ukraine, Russia works for the West, on and on and on and on. But the rate that's going on in Russia is not going to, I don't think, is going to, I'm not a war guy. I'm not buying off on that quite yet. But I've been wrong plenty, so we'll see. You just got to know what you own, know your risk tolerance, and not believe much of what the mainstream media tells you. Think for yourself. If you think for yourself, you guys are smarter than 97% of the people out there, and just carry it through.
I'm kind of curious, or I find it interesting that like somebody within Putin's own ranks hasn't tried to assassinate him at this point, because like if you look back at Hitler in power in Nazi Germany in the 30s and 40s, there were like multiple assassination attempts against him when he was starting stuff up.
Did you know about it until years later, though? Who's to say that they haven't?
That's true.
And maybe that assassination attempt pushed him into these actions. So
that movie's coming in AMC theater near you.
Yeah, I mean the bottom line is you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. You'll never know what's going on behind the scenes. You just don't know. And you'll know after the fact. You'll know after the fact, but you just don't know. And it is what it is. It's just again, if you're a bunch of the oligarchs, whatever they have, between 5 billion and 50 billion, and you're creating all sorts of havoc. I mean, to me, you pass the hat. You raise $200 million, you give it to Spence and say, get the job done. Now, Spence knows full well that if he finds out about it, he'll kill you and your family. But there's ways to end this whole thing. There's ways that this crazy shit can end. I mean, there's solutions to it. So I just don't get too cranked up thinking the world's coming to an end.
Mark, is that a dog in the background?
Yeah, I got 4 of them, and they're all confused because of the time change.
Aww.
Because of the time change, they're hungry. So that's that.
Fuck daylight savings.
Yeah, exactly.
Getting dog food margin called.
It sounds to me like you have a lot of faith in the right people doing the right things to correct the situation.
In terms of the Russian thing?
No, I just meant in the American markets thing and the things going on with the hedge funds and the market.
No, I mean, I think these hedge funds need to blow up and they need to be put out of their own misery, and I hope they don't get bailed out. I have no faith in that. I mean, but what you're watching clearly are guys getting blown out of their positions. I mean, I think guys, if the quarter were to close today, I think famous guys are down 40+%. And in a quarter, that's beyond a disaster. And I think the media, the thinking mainstream media, is so inept, and there's so few people who do a good job that who knows what's up? Who knows?
Do you think there's a correlation between the media and the finance market and the correlation between the media and government news?
Well, in Canada, the government owns the media, and they restrict the mainstream media and what they can report and say. U.S. less so, but the Cartoon Network is clearly controlled by the government because they keep giving people the stupid glitch and all their stupid stories. I mean, they're completely inept. But
yeah,
I just
think there's a correlation between that crookedness with the politics and the government and Biden as there is with the Cartoon Networks and their finance coverage.
I don't know. It depends. You know, you ask a really good question. It depends of the day. I mean, I got so down on them when the market was sick and the guys on Cartoon were advocating to close the markets. That made me so bullish I couldn't even see. And I just don't know. I think there's such a lack of understanding on what's really going on that people just don't get the straight scoop. I mean, what's really going on is these over leveraged billion, 10 to $80 billion hedge funds are doing horribly and they're getting destroyed and they're having to liquidate. That's what's going on. And it's causing everyone then to sell because the backdrop is interest rates are going up and there's a war or dust up in Russia. That's what has people really, really in a mess.
Unusual just reported that Russian drone was just shot down over Poland, which is not a good thing.
Right. I mean, but again, if we get into World War III or you get Europe or NATO or the whole thing goes, then everything is going lower again. So the trick is it's in a lot of people's interest to keep the oatmeal from boiling over. And again, I've seen enough horseshit in my day that playing for debacles tends to be a bad bet because the debacle never really happens. Now, people can get scared out of their minds and things can go lower and all the various things, but we'll see. But to me, the U.S. market's selling off because one, everyone knew the Fed's going to raise rates. That's not new. Everyone knows inflation's out of control. That's not new. These hedge funds are completely fucked. That's sort of new. And the Russia-Ukrainian thing, I mean, shit, when it first happened, Kramer, the asshat, said it would be over in 1 to 3 hours. And the market actually rallied on all that. The market, when you had the invasion, the market actually started going up. And everyone said this is not a big deal. Well, the bigger deal is the Ukrainians are giving the Russians all they can handle. And frankly, that's bullish as shit because, for a superpower not to be able to handle Ukraine is sort of a joke. It's like a little leaguer striking out Reggie Jackson. If the Russians are so tough, they can't even take over the country next door. And everyone's worried about their nukes. I mean, my question would be, can Russia even launch the nukes? I mean, if they can't run tanks into Ukraine, I'd have a hard time believing they're so tough with nukes. So, but I don't know. I'm just, it's just my view. I'm not afraid to speak my view, and it's what it is. It's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, they very clearly showed they can't maintain their own equipment and vehicles. And so if they can't maintain their equipment and vehicles that are going to be going out in the field of battle, what is the real shape of their nuclear arsenal in? Maybe that's where all their focus has been, but I don't know. It looks like a systemic problem to me from some of the things that I've seen emerging online about the state of their forces,
I mean, I don't think Ukraine could best be described as a world power. And if anyone wanted to put odds on Russia invading Ukraine, how long would it last? Most people would say it would last hours or a day or two rather than many days. And Russia's actually getting their ass kicked, which is why they have to go to China to get
No
their
offense to Ukraine, but I would have lost a lot of money on that bet if I had made it.
Well, this is what I'm saying. So So the real solution, I mean, if for whatever reason the oligarchs pay Spence $200 million and he does blow Putin's head off, the market the next day would go up 4,000 points. And the story would be, look how great the economy is going to be because we're going to rebuild Ukraine. We're going to rebuild it because the place has basically been sort of destroyed. And we're going to put a pro-West guy, Brett, in charge of Russia, and he'll give us all his natural resources in exchange for all this trade. We take all the restrictions off, and everyone would be bullish as shit. And then the price of commodities would go down, and Powell would say, we don't need to raise rates because commodities are now going through the floor because we've liberated Russia. I mean, there's all sorts of bull cases you can come out of this thing, which is why, you just don't want to get too fanatical on either side. And really what this all takes is time. Time has a way of smoothing all this shit out. But in the meantime, with things going down and things being weak, I would just as soon see these bad actors and these hedge fund and brokerage bad actors completely and utterly go out of business quickly, because I hate them all. I hate Tiger as much. Well, no, I hate Citadel more than I hate Chase Coleman and Tiger, but I can't stand any of them. So the sooner the better. And the mainstream media needs to refocus to help everyone out, to encourage free thought.
I think you'll find true market stability and a lack of need for the SEC if the big hedge funds close down. I think if they focus more on retail investing and individual investment practices, they're going to find the market operates a lot better.
Yeah. So, Mark, basically what I heard you say is they're kicking the can down the road with all the uncertainty in the markets right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a can-kicking episode. It's really what it is, and you gotta hope cooler heads prevail.
Where Russia really failed with Ukraine is they allowed Ukraine time to settle into the city to prepare to fight them. If they would have blitzed in as fast as possible, they probably would have taken over the capital already. And that's something they really messed up on, because some of the reports are saying that there's Russian soldiers saying they thought it was a training exercise. And I'll tell you, when a smaller or more undisciplined but motivated fighting force can beat world-class military out, or at least stall them, that means there's massive discord among the ranks of the Russian troops. So they messed up bad when they didn't just blast right in. They should have, not that I wanted it to happen, but they should have blitzkrieged in, took over the capital, and it would have been the end of it.
Well,
but like, who's winning in the Ukraine war?
Well, nobody's winning. It's war. It's already lost.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
I think
I
dipping their toes.
Let's just call it a dust up.
Yeah.
Because to me, if someone walked in there, you could end it very quickly on a. I mean, wasn't Ukraine part of Russia not that long ago?
Well, that's like asking who won the Battle of Thermopylae.
Yeah, but I mean,
no, Ukraine was not part of Russia. It was the Soviet Union was a union of different republics.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. Back in the day, it used to be the USSR, right?
Yep.
And
they were like a province in Canada. Russia.
In the USSR, I mean, it used to be that town in the USSR was Kiev, right?
Yeah.
It used to be Kiev. But
in Russia, the Russians are pronounce it Kiev, and the Ukrainians it's Kiev.
Okay, right. Okay, so to make it simple, when I used to go, when I used to go to school as a kid, and they put up the map of the USSR, it was just one giant chunk of land, and all these cities and Ukraine or whatever's around it was all part of USSR. And when they used to show up at the Olympics, they wouldn't be Belarus or Ukraine or these other joints. It would all be under USSR. And then they split it up, right, to form these little parts. Correct? Am I so far right with history?
Yeah.
That's the way I remember it. But
Right.
I kind of associate as provinces in Canada. If Quebec decided they wanted to be their own country, and then Canada wanted them back, that would be the Ukraine-Russian situation right now.
Exactly. So again,
well,
way back.
there was a big strategic mistake that Putin thinks Lenin made and Stalin carried out, which is not making Greater Russia, where everybody was part of a Greater Russia, but keeping these separate republics separate. Putin is angry with his predecessors for having done that because it permitted them, as a result, to have a sense of independence in 1991 when when the USSR fell apart. And so Putin is really pissed off because he wants Greater Russia. It was never the case. It was Greater Russia.
But like, how many percent did Russia take over of Ukraine?
I think if they handled the Ukraine situation the same way as they did when Russia went into Georgia, it wouldn't be this mess that it is now.
Well, we were also very heavily implanted in the Middle East at that time too. So them going after Georgia was a really bad move with the majority of our U.S. forces already deployed. That's why they waited for the drawdown.
How long will this still keep going? Will like Russia and Ukraine? Guys know?
I don't think anyone knows at this point.
Ask Jim Cramer, and whatever the opposite is exactly what will happen.
Facts. These are facts.
It's so true.
I'm just, it's
Bear Stearns is fine. Don't take your money out of Bear Stearns. Summation of 2008.
Anyway, so guys, I'm smoking a corned beef, so I'm gonna go. I gotta go check on it, but I wanted to say hello to the gang and just tell everyone just stay calm and this shit'll pass and no one should panic on much. Panicking's never good. And,
thanks for popping in, Mark. It's refreshing to hear your voice for sure.
Okay,
Panic
guys.
leads to impulse, which leads to bad decisions.
Exactly. So everyone take care. I'll catch everyone later.
Later, Mark.
Spence, real quick, my speaker cut out when you were saying about the Georgia thing. I didn't hear any of it.
Oh, so Georgia, we were heavily deployed in the Middle East at that time. We actually got hit up by the theater commander and it said, you guys need to be prepared to redeploy further north because it looks like Russia's going into Georgia, which the Georgians were in Iraq with us at the time. So it was a really bad move for Russia to do that at the time because we were so heavily deployed in the Middle East that redeployment to that area or on the outskirts was too simple for us. So I think Russia definitely waited for our troop drawdown overseas to even attempt this Ukraine thing. And then the weakness showed in our military. I mean, half of our military trainees now are on fucking TikTok. I can't get into it. I'm going to get too mad if I get into it. But when you see everything you need to see about another country's military, equipment, personnel, location on TikTok, there's a big freaking problem in the U.S. right now.
True. But that still takes me, though, to the point of Ukraine. Like, the situation isn't no different with Russia going into Ukraine as it was Georgia, other than you said the deployment. But they still could have totally stopped Russia right from the get-go like they did in Georgia, and this would have been over before it even started.
Yeah, if there was a commander-in-chief in charge right now, and a Congress that backed them up that said, hey, you do this, there's going to be serious consequences. It wouldn't have happened. It's just political weakness. And you can take that how you want. I don't care left or right, but the truth is that Russia took opportunity of a weak administration and a big troop drawdown to take their chance at Ukraine. Now, where they messed up is they kicked their feet along the way. If they would have just blitzkrieged right in before anybody knew what was even going on, they probably would have already taken over the capital. I think
gave them permission to do it.
Well, like I said, there's a lot of discord among the Russian troop ranks right now, and that's why you see reports of 80-year-old people shooing away Russian soldiers, and tanks broke down on the side of the road. They weren't prepared, ready, and their troop, their status as a military, their readiness level is obviously piss poor. And I'm guessing a lot of it had to do with a lot of inner circle, probably commanders not wanting anything to do with this, because there's soldiers that are literally saying in interviews and as they were being captured, they said they thought it was a training exercise. So there's definitely a lot going on.
Was Ukraine not going in NATO? What about that part?
They were applying to be part of NATO, and I think some of the talk, and I don't remember, I think this was from OSI, one of the OSI channels or whatever, but we'd have to go back and look. That like there had been some sort of agreement between us and Ukraine, like not a formal agreement or whatever, but we had basically said, oh yeah, totally, we'll back you coming into NATO. And that was part of the reason that Putin was so upset was he didn't want them to join NATO for reasons of being up on his borders. But that's just one narrative.
Part of NATO or not never stopped us from interfering before.
Well, U.S. is still supplying weapons for Ukraine, right? Food supplies.
Yeah, but the reason for not going in is because they're not a member of the UN or whatever.
Right.
That's never stopped us before.
Well, that's why I said Unusual Whales just reported that a Russian drone was shot down over Poland. So I'm sure we'll hear something about that in the news tomorrow.
Ukraine is still standing alone, like fighting by themselves, right? Just like no one helping them.
Yeah, no NATO country can actually physically intervene in what is happening right now. We can supply weapons and aid and everything, but if any U.S. military forces was caught in Ukraine fighting Russian soldiers, then it's not a good. We legally can't do it.
But
until another NATO country is attacked.
Individuals on their own are leaving their countries to go to Ukraine to sign.
Oh, absolutely.
And reinforcing their ground troops.
Yeah, I absolutely believe there's individuals going over and fighting for sure. I'm sure there's probably some Americans over there that we're not hearing about.
But like U.S. is supporting Ukraine with a fight by supplying weapons and other stuff, right?
Oh yeah, the new
weapons and supplies,
air to ground and or ground to air and ground to ground missiles that they just sent over there is the reason you're seeing a lot of tanks that are going to be blown up and aircraft.
This is not just NATO. This is Russia has a history of hundreds of years, well before NATO, of authoritarianism and aggressive actions relative to their neighbors. So to get pigeonholed into thinking this is only because of NATO coming into NATO or going out is actually an incorrect understanding of what actually the forces are that are much, much deeper and historical with regard to Russia. And I just sent something to you, Spence.
It's probably Putin's farewell letter too. I'm guessing that this is his last stand.
I want to throw a tinfoil hat on real quick and say that there was a reason that we had to get Afghan forces out of Afghan that fast.
If I may, I have a question, and I don't want to be controversial, but my understanding, I just want to see it in another point of view. How the U.S. would feel if Russia had base in Canada or Mexico? I'm not trying to stir controversy.
Well, we've had that situation before where they based in Cuba during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So,
and it was almost war. The way I see it, because I read a little, through history, all invasion that occurred in Russia was through Ukraine, and I think for the way I'm seeing it, I think all this was because the talk of Ukraine going into NATO. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my thinking. If someone can talk about that. Thank you.
Yeah, because if they got into the UN, it would have solidified their independence from Russia, and Russia would have never even had a chance to.
Ukraine is in the UN as an independent country.
Yes, but being part of the UN sort of solidifies that.
No, I mean all the others. All the other republics are.
You mean NATO?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of people on the UN right now, but it doesn't mean that they're under the same protection as NATO. So
correct.
But hey, guys.
But just to answer your question, so just to give you a sense, it's all about causation and understanding big factors in history, not just, and also personalities. But even if there were no NATO, what would be happening? I mean, thank God there's a NATO, if you actually think about it, such that you don't have other countries being destroyed. So the issue is, how do you handle this circumstance? Because Ukraine is, as Akum said, it's like the front yard, a very, very sensitive area. So how do you handle it?
It's a
by
buffer.
the way, and by the way, Zelensky is saying he was offering up after Putin came in, neutrality. So it's already on the table, negotiating wise, between Russia and Ukraine. They're already negotiating, as you know, very, very, very deeply. And one of the elements will be neutrality.
The point that I was trying to make with the Afghan thing is, how much did they know that far ahead that this was going to happen, that it became imperative that they get their troops out of Afghan?
Not related, not causal.
I think those are disjoint, and the reason is because over the last, let's see, we started the war on terror in 2001, and we just started pulling troops out of our last area that we had really had troops deployed.
I'm not saying
to fight
from Afghanistan was entirely, because
no.
I'm talking about the speed of the withdrawal, like the necessity.
The speed, I believe, partly was just how much flack that had been getting for the last 18 years. It had dragged on for 18 years. People were tired of it. We were tired of losing people out there and not having any
and by the way,
results,
at the
and having
time,
spent so much money.
And at the time, there were only like 10,000 troops left. It's not as though there was a large American presence. It was completely insufficient to try to assist at that juncture. So it's not as though we were needing resources elsewhere at another theater. It had nothing to do with it.
Well, going back to Spence, what you said earlier, like one of the things that happened with Georgia is they made the mistake because we already had troops within striking distance to stop that. And that's not, you don't see that as the same situation if we had troops right there already?
Well, troops right there while Russia was aggressing against Georgia, who was our ally at the time in the Middle East.
So Georgia wanted to go into NATO, and the minute they were going into NATO or trying to get into NATO, Putin attacked. At that same juncture, Ukraine said, we're not going into NATO. And that's the reason at that specific moment, Putin did not attack Ukraine when they were attacking Georgia.
Yep. It's really bad to attack a country that's allied in a declared war somewhere in the world, especially that close of a distance, because then you have a lot more. We already declared war and we announced allied ships with different countries. And if one of those countries is attacked during a declaration of war, it gives us a lot of right to do a lot of things. So that move by Russia was bad. But regardless, we've been running for like almost 4 hours now. I got to go eat dinner. Pretty burned out, and I'm looking to get up early tomorrow for the market. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with this Bloomberg terminal news, liquidations and whatnot this week. So I want to thank everyone for coming. And if anybody on the top of the panel has anything to close with, Clarence, thank you for coming. Jumping in.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for coming in,
Tickets for Morpheus, tickets for Sonic, both are on sale.
I got my Morpheus tickets.
There is a sweepstakes. I tweeted about this, I think. There's a sweepstakes that if you go order through the AMC app and click the link or whatever, you can enter for a chance to win an 86-inch TV, a game system. So I'm assuming this is either a PS5 or an Xbox Series X or S. So you're talking about already like $2,000 of value there, plus more stuff that they didn't list out specifically. So you're talking about $2,000 worth of prizes if you just go watch the movie. So I think it's a good promotional thing. Hopefully we can draw people in. It's the second Sonic movie. I think it's going to be fantastic because fucking Jim Carrey is Jim Carrey. And
oh yeah,
just he gets to be Jim Carrey, like what he's capable of in that first Sonic movie, and I think he's going to deliver again in the second one.
Heck yeah, I'm excited for that movie.
I'm bullish on Jim Carrey. That's what I'm saying. I'm bullish on Jim Carrey.
I just have a couple things to say before you end the call here, Spence. Just real quick, everyone in the room right now, I want you to throw up hearts. If you're still holding with me, come on, guys. I don't care if it's red hearts, green hearts, purple hearts, yellow hearts, orange hearts. It doesn't. Throw up the hearts. If you're still holding AMC, throw up the hearts. Let's see it. Come on, guys.
Well, now you're being, you're segregating the people who have 100.